Hey, Adrian. If you want some music or anything, let me know.
Let's on some music. Why not? Good morning.
On.
Something was with my camera. I don't know if you had seen it this morning. Dude, my camera was all weird. Like made me look spacey. It was like
Hey,
night.
your mic, Adrian, no good.
Hold on. Let's try. Let's try.
You
Okay, how
start
about
again, alien.
does this sound better or no?
No,
Okay, hold on. So we do this.
I'm glad we're doing this now.
All right. How about now?
Oh, wow.
Better? Okay, good.
That was magical.
Awesome. Hey, Xingjing, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Adrian? Right now is good. Right now you sound very clearly.
Yes.
Love it. Good stuff.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share some música. This one's for you, Adrian.
Feel like we're at the roller skating rink.
Enjoy it.
Love it, love it, love it.
Andrea, you are in Western office or Pembroke Pines office?
I'm in Weston today.
Oh, I see. Very close to me.
Very close. I heard it.
My heartbeat keeps going, so I don't know. I'm just gonna not share. Because whenever
That's all right. No issues. We're almost there anyways.
Yeah. Adrian, you're signed in as host, right? Or as co-host at least? Yeah, I see you. Okay.
Yeah.
The 8 or 7 participants in here that are not Adrian and I, don't forget, we have our business meeting this week, 11:30. Don't miss it. L5ltraining.com. Go to it. Make sure you're planning your week. This whole month is jam-packed with amazing classes. And I know all of you are so eager to learn. So make sure L5ltraining.com.
Love it. I had filled some of this out earlier, and unfortunately, since I had to restart, it didn't save some of the stuff that I had put in here. So I'm just going back real fast.
Oh, you're talking in the actual contract?
We're almost there. All right, let me switch over to my screen and let's take a look at who we have.
If you don't see your friend on the call, text them. Everybody can definitely take a review on the FAR bar contract. We always can learn something new. Invite your people.
All right, so while we're getting to those last few minutes, let me just see who we have here. Janine, good morning. Janine, what market center are you with? I don't know if she's got her audio.
Sorry. Hi, I'm with Miami Beach.
I see a Tony.
Yeah, hi, it's Tony in Weston.
Hey, there you go, Tony. All right. Hey, we got some smiling faces. All right, I'm gonna give my announcement in just a few minutes, but for those of you who get to hear it and see it first, remember to turn your cameras on. For any of you who have seen my classes or anything that we've done, I love the interactiveness of these Zoom calls. Believe me, I need your energy just as much as you need mine. So if you don't want to make this boring, hang out with me, talk to me. I'll ask for feedback. Leticia, good morning. I see Yossi. Crosley. Who's Jay Crosley?
Hi, it's me, Joan Shirley.
Joan, all right. Just makes it easier. All right. Nina, I see you. I've got someone is coming in as iPhone. Who's that? Is that Davies? Ooh, look at that. Now we can see.
Yes, I think so. It might be me.
All right. It is 11:30. Sergio Scalderan. How are you, sir? Great to see you.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, good, good. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. It is 11:30, and I want to respect everyone's time. We are here for the FAR bar contract, and I'm going to ask some questions, and I want a little bit of, I'm hoping for some feedback from you guys in hopes of what it is that you guys are looking for. But before we do that, let me kind of just start with the formalities. Let me introduce myself. My name is Adrian, your broker support. There's quite a few of you on this call that I've seen before, and so this introduction will just be a repeat, but I am your broker support for all of the L5L offices, and basically what that means is that as you guys get into contract negotiation where you're moving through in your contracts, I want to make sure that you guys understand some of the hierarchy that the company has developed for you, and more importantly, that the systems that are available for you. Your first big line of defense, and we have one of our PC coaches on the call today, is you have Tony. If you're in Weston, or any of your PC coaches in any of your office, they are your first line of defense in terms of get your contracts written, get it set up, and negotiate it. But if you ever find yourself in a position where, okay, something's getting sketchy, or there's a question or a challenge, then by all means, make sure that you have my number, that you know how to reach me, my number, and I'll put it into the chat real fast. Or Davies, if you can do that for me, it's area code 754 802 1378 is the absolute easiest way to reach me, and I'll give you guys a couple of quick tips on that. If you ever need me for any of those contract related questions, and again, if it's in trouble, get it to me. If it's about to be in trouble, make sure you get a hold of me. And if it's on fire, please, I hope you didn't wait that long to get a hold of me. Call me. If I don't answer, it's probably because I'm teaching or on the phone with someone else. Text me, or if you get a wonderful message from me that says, hey, I'm on a phone or I'm on a Zoom call, text me for a faster response. Please text me. I promise you that it's not that I'm trying to multitask at everything, but I can usually get to you a lot faster if I get a quick synopsis of what's going on. And I promise if it's complicated and you tell me it's complicated, I'm going to call you. Just give me a few minutes to get back to you. I see Barry jumping on. All right. As your broker support, I've been enrolled for a couple of years at this point. I've had the great pleasure of wearing many hats in our organization, from field service inspector back in the REO days. Yes, back in the REO days when the market was crazy. I was the one out there doing inspections, cash for keys, doing valuations, BPOs, and all that fun stuff. I worked all through that. I've been an agent, of course, a transaction coordinator, part of the Tello team crew back in the day, and so now you're broker support. So again, the only reason for saying that is that I come with a pretty healthy handful of experience. I'm going to slow down for just a moment. So we're starting to see that we've got about 20 something people joining up, and we've got about 6 people with videos. And I'm going to ask you and encourage you, please do me a huge favor. It helps me move the class along if you guys interact and participate. I promise I'm going to throw stuff out there, and I'm going to ask for some healthy participation. Fortunately, Davies is on the call with us. So I'm going to ask you to, if you've got a question, try to throw it into the chat area first. And if I can catch it, I'll catch it, or Davies will stop me if it pertains to the section of the contract that I'm in. I'm going to ask you to hold back a little bit on what I like to call the what if scenarios, right? Because I guarantee as we start going through this, you're going to start getting a bunch of them because they're going to come flooding into your heads. Well, what if my buyer this? What if my seller wrecks this? What if this? What is that? And not because I want to discourage it. It's just that the FAR bar contract in and of itself will take us the better part of about an hour and a half to almost 2 full hours just to get through. I tend to be very thorough on this contract class because I want to give you guys as much ammunition to fill it out correctly, to avoid some of the pitfalls that show up when agents fill these out. And then, like I said, we'll have an opportunity to just have some open dialogue. And if there's something important, throw it out there. And like I said, God willing, Davies will catch it and we'll move from there. So don't be afraid of that. However, when I ask for some feedback, guys, go ahead. Feel free to take yourselves off mute. That's the opportunity to chat. And we want to make it more fun for me and for both you and I. The last thing I'm going to ask you is please get those video cameras on. I know that some of you might say, well, I'm not ready. Go throw a hat on. Doesn't matter to me. I prefer to see some smiling faces. Hey, Nina, I saw you came in for a second. Get some smiling faces on there. It helps me engage. And like I said, I need your energy just as much as you need mine. So that's my last get your cameras on announcement. With that said, let me go ahead and start taking over the screen. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause for a second. I'm not going to do that just yet. So here's what I'm going to ask you to kind of unmute yourselves if you've got some concerns or what the items that are showing up for you is today's FAR class, again, is specifically designed to help you guys fill this thing out. If you've been filling this out for a while, great. I promise you'll learn something. It's just what shows up. I'm going to always encourage you to go back, not just on this class, but get some perspective on FAR, meaning you're going to take my class. I hope to God that you learn something. As a matter of fact, my commitment to you is that you'll leave with something more than what you first came in with. Beyond that, though, I want you to find another FAR contracts class and take some more perspective. Because although I have one way of doing it, and yes, I've been doing it successfully this way for many years, I can promise you that getting different perspectives on how to write this contract, which, by the way, is basically the primary source of our livelihood, go get it. Here's the second part of this, and this is, I promise this will be the last preaching moment. Read the contract, guys. This is that one component that no matter how many times I say it, I can tell you indefinitely, it frustrates me. It's the one source or the primary source of your money, where your money comes from. Your financial well-being is centers around this contract. And if I asked an agent today, hey, tell me what's on page 5, paragraph 3 or paragraph 6, and they have no clue what's in there, guys, we have agents that have been in the business for years and still don't know the contract. It's not that long. I promise, even for those of us, this guy included, who don't love to read, it's not that many pages. You actually have to take the time and read the contract. Read it a couple of times, read it 4 times, read it 5 times. It starts to make more sense. Obviously, the more you've been doing this in the business, you start to interpret it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I leave you with this. Make sure that you read your contract, get some perspective in different classes. So don't just take mine. Go take an attorney's class, which we put them on the calendar. So when they show up, go get them. All right. Let me open up for some dialogue here. So talk to me a little bit, guys. What is it that you are hoping to get from this class today? And so this is your opportunity. Unmute. Give me some energy. What do you have? What are you looking for? Not everyone at once.
Hi.
Here's what go for it, Leticia.
Hi. I've written a few contracts. I wanted to, I do get some advice from a friend of mine that's a lawyer, and he always tells me, remember, you have to make your contract attractive. The more attractive your contract. So I want to know, what are the different things that we can do to make our contract more attractive, especially in the market that we're in right now, that I've had so many contracts turned down or beat out. So I want to know, what are the things that we need to do to make our contract more attractive?
Fair enough. All right. I love the concept, Leticia, and I see some heads that are shaking. And I said it was the last time. I lied. I'm going to say it again. Guys, turn your cameras on. Please turn your cameras on. It helps me interact with all of you. I absolutely agree. In today's landscape, you're going to find yourself not only just knowing how to write the contract, right? But yeah, there's tips and tricks on how to make it look, and I'll use your word, Leticia, attractive. We'll go through a couple of those today. I would lie to you and tell you that we have enough time to do it all in one shot. There's no way. The good news is I promise you'll leave with some tips today that'll actually work, from not just the price, because too many agents focus on just the price. And unfortunately, it really, what it boils down to is, what does the seller get? Does the seller net more in your contract? If the answer is yes, then the seller will probably choose your contract. And we'll talk about some of that. So I love that. All right, I got that. How do we make the contract more attractive? Love it. All right, give me some more, guys. I know you didn't come in here today just to hear me chat. What do you guys want? What are you hoping to get out of this class?
It.
Susan, one more time. Sorry.
Sorry. So like I haven't written any contracts. I'm jumping back into real estate. And so I'm just wanting to repeat the information and just get more and more comfortable with it. Because I know for me, it's like I get that anxiety and nerves if I don't understand it well enough. Even though I know there's a team of people helping me, I just want to understand it more and more.
Perfect. So Susan, let me start by commending you for doing and being committed to your learning process. That's awesome. I can't tell you how much, no matter how much I say it, how much Coach Barry says it, or Tony, who's on the call, get as much of this as you can, especially if this is the point in your career where you're still in learning mode and you're not writing 100 contracts a month. Great. Get as much of this in your head as much as you can. Get as much perspective. Go get some more trainings. I love that you're back for round 2 or 3. If it's round 5, it doesn't matter. Take it. Love it. Welcome back. All right, give me some more. What are you guys hoping to get out of this? Let's take a few more. Sergio.
Yeah. No, basically, if it's difficult for us, it's more difficult for the buyer or the seller. So what are the points? Because when you present this to the buyer, he's going to ask you questions, and it's complicated, like I said, for us. So how we explain that to the buyer or seller when they start asking about this and that? I'm sure the price is the main thing, but there are so many points they're going to ask, and and how can we present it so it's easier for them to digest?
Love it. All right. So I'll show you a couple of points today on how to make your offers more attractive. That's already scheduled and done. Check mark. We'll go through that. The good news, Sergio, is that the way that I present this class is I'm going to present it from the perspective of a buyer's agent. Because as a listing agent, technically you're not writing the listing. I mean, you're not writing the buyer's contract. You're agreeing to it or disagreeing or making amendments or changes. And that's okay. But at the end of the day, I love what you're asking, is that there's certain components that are in there, not just the price. We're going to get to a section where when you ask you to drop a deposit, how do you sell the deposit amount that you're asking for to make it look like, hey, there's a reason why I'm asking you for $15,000 and not $3,000. How do we sell those points to the buyer? So we'll go through that. And again, my goal for you is to present it from the perspective of a buyer's agent selling this contract to the buyer to say yes. right, good stuff. Love it. All right, give me one more, guys. I know
I
you
think,
didn't.
I think the basic what you're getting is price and terms. I think Letitia, that's what maybe what she's looking for. And you know, you talk about terms, and sometimes I had an agent this week that thought he had a slam dunk on a deal because he had a good price, but the terms are horrible.
Okay.
So and as you just said, it's important to sell the terms as much as you sell the price, and it's price and terms that make an offer, not one or the other.
Love it. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better. I love it. All right, so we're gonna look at how to make this more attractive. We're gonna present it from the perspective of the buyer, and I'll give you guys some what I call some best tips in terms in order to get a yes. Because at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves. As much as I love doing these classes, as much as we enjoy hanging out with each other, I want you guys to get said yes to. Here's the contract. Yay! Otherwise, not for nothing. We wasted a lot of people's time, yours included. Fair enough? Couple head nods. All right, thumbs up. All right, good. All right, let's get going. We're gonna share some screens here and let's begin. So I need a couple thumbs up only because, again, I'm working off of only one screen today. So if I ask for a thumbs up, or if can you see it, someone do me a favor, do one of these or give me some head nods so that I know that we're moving in the right direction. Awesome. Thank you, Susan. All right. I'm going to flip through a couple of my screens so that I don't lose you, and I preface the basic parameters of writing a contract up, right? Because at the end of the day, you'll get proficient enough with this stuff that you'll write up a contract in just a few minutes. And for some of you who are newer, I'll flip through screens and you're going to be like, oh my God, where is he? So let me get through that first, and then we'll get to writing the contract. Fair enough? Head nods, thumbs up, something? All right. And feel free to say, yeah, it's okay. Make some noise in the background. I'm okay with all that. All right, so the first thing I want to make sure that you guys are aware of is that I am not using any system that you currently shouldn't be using, meaning I'm using Command integrated with DocuSign. That is how we're going to teach this class today. So I went into Command, and here's the reality. I don't have the time today to teach you how to go into Command, set up DocuSign, go into it, create an opportunity. And if any of the words I'm saying to you today sound foreign, well, guess what? I need you to join us on Tuesday afternoons and Thursday afternoons for Get Your Tech Help. I need you guys to watch the 66-day challenge, which Davies and some of your, Davies, help me with the role name. Agent success managers. I couldn't think of the word. Thank you. And your agent success managers told you to do when you first got to the company, meaning there's a couple of things you need to do. You got to watch the 66-day challenge videos, which are from start to finish the best way to get through the material in terms of your technology. You got to know it. And I'm gonna make no mistake, we don't have the time to teach you today. There's no way. But anyway, so you would have gone through Command, opened up an opportunity, created it in DocuSign, pulled up your documents, and that's how we're going to write our contract today. So Command leads into DocuSign, which is where we've created a contract today for you, and we're going to kind of follow these steps and we'll move through that. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of a couple of other screens that I have open. One is called bcpa.net because I just happen to be writing a contract today that I am in pretend Broward County. So bcpa.net, it sources a lot of the information that I'm going to need when I pull this contract. And this will become more important as we start filling some stuff out. So just know that I'm sourcing from bcpa.net. And then the second portion is I'm going to go through a couple of screens inside of BCPA so that you guys know why and where I do some things. So here we go. And yes, the first page takes the longest, so we're going to go slow. Stop me if you need a refresher, and make it interactive, guys. I'm here for you guys. This is your class, so the more you participate in this, the more you get out of it. So we'll start with line 1, parties. It says the seller. Most agents would say, oh, Adrian, that's so obvious. It just happens to be the seller of the property, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. Here's the reality. I need you to go to bcpa.net. Once you find the address of the property, right? Because this is not rocket science. You'll go to bcpa.net, you'll go to property search, type in the address, and voila, a make-believe address shows up here. When you scroll a little bit further to the bottom, and some of you, I'm going to lose you, just hang out with me. I promise it'll make sense when you're filling out your contract. There's a section in bcpa.net or even the Miami-Dade property appraiser's website that shows right here the very last recorded warranty deed or deed transfer of the property. I don't want you to use the older ones. Use the most current or the newest recorded deed. Scroll right over and you see this little blue hyperlink that shows a page number. That page number is the recorded deed of that property. Here's why I don't want you to just use this, because here's where it says property owners, Jonas Charles L. III. You see that? That's who the property owner is at this point. I'm going to go to that warranty deed. Make sure that I did this right. And I'm going to assume that I did this right. So for those of you who are going to catch me on an error here, just imagine for a moment that I pulled up that warranty deed. That warranty deed is specifically associated with this property. I want someone to tell me, and you can go ahead and take yourselves off mute. Who is the owner of this property? You got a lot of information in front of you.
Schuler. Stephen A. Wallace and Jennifer.
No, John and Vivian Schuler.
So so we have a right answer. Who is John and Vivian Schuler? Who were they? Who
the grantors.
Correct. So there's a couple of ways that you can ensure that you're doing this right. And again, this isn't to make anyone wrong. I want to make sure that everybody's clear on this. Stephen A. Wallace and Jennifer M. Wallace are the owners of this property. If you had any grant, here's the grantor, grantee. They are granting. They are the owners of this property. Second name. On our contract, Stephen A. Wallace, Jennifer M. Wallace become the seller of the property. That's who goes there. I'm going to pause there for 2 seconds. I want to make sure that I didn't lose anybody on that. I want to make sure that we didn't. Here's what I want to make sure you guys heard. I didn't show up to the contract, call the listing agent and say, hey, by the way, who's the owner of the property so I can write the contract? One, no listing agent's going to give you the time of day to give you that information. Go to the Broward County Public Records, make sure that you check the deed to ensure that you're putting the right name. Here's a better reason, because some of you might say, well, Adrian, we just spent 5 minutes on this. That seems pretty obvious. If the property is deeded in a trust, you need to put the proper name of the trust. And if you don't go to the deed, you're not going to see it. It's not going to be that obvious to you. So some of those deeds, you'll see that it'll say Stephen A. Wallace and Jennifer M. Wallace Irrevocable Living Trust. Guess what? That's the title. That's the name of your contract. That's how you've got to put it. It might say Stephen A. Wallace and Jennifer M. Wallace Living Estate. That's the name of the seller. So you got to make sure that you look for that. That's why I make it such a big deal to go into the deed and make sure you look at that. All right, the buyers. You have the buyers. So going back to Sergio's point, we are representing this contract from the perspective of the buyer's agent. So I like some controversy in my mouse. That's why Minnie Mouse is married to Donald Duck in my make-believe world. So that's who I put as my, what do you call it? As my buyers. I'm going to do something because I saw someone looking at their screen. Guys, is this a little more helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
The only challenge I have is that now that I did that, some of my screen goes out. So just be patient with me. I promise we'll get through this together, right? I'm going to do a little quick thing here and see if I got it all. Does the screen lose it for anybody? Say yes. Okay. That's a no. We're going to keep going. All right, good. So I've got Stephen A. Wallace, Jennifer M. Wallace are the sellers. We understand that I've got the buyers, so they're my buyers. I know who they are. At the street address, guys, we can move through a few of these components a little bit faster. Mine is 123 Wish It Was Mine Avenue in Miramar, Florida, 33321. Then we get to what's called the property tax ID. Most of you should know where you get that. That was your I was going to say ENC 1101 back in college days. That is your real estate 101. When you were in classes, remember those 60 hours for most of us, that's where they showed you when you go to the property assessor's website, see this property ID right here on the top, that is your folio number. Now, what we're not going to teach you today is that every one of these subsections means something. 504 is the area, 119 is another city, municipality, and all that. They all mean something. I'm not here to teach you that today. At the end of the day, you just got to know where it's located so that you put the right one in. Here's what I'm going to say to this real fast. Take your time in going through the property assessor's website, get the information correctly, copy and paste it. And the reason I'm saying that, guys, is because I've seen all too often agents will blast through this, or they'll try to memorize stuff. They'll put it into the contract. Their contract will get in trouble. And then it's only when something's going to go wrong that there's a problem. You put in the wrong property ID, an attorney who's counter arguing your contract says, well, we don't even have the right property ID. This contract is null and void, and you have now wasted everyone's time in writing this contract. So I just want to make sure that you guys take the time, slow down doing these things properly. All right, so we put in our property ID, which is a folio number, as some others like to call it. And then we get to probably my favorite section, which is your property legal description. Now, in mine, I'm exaggerating a point. You'll see that mine says, see Exhibit A, deed for legal description. My gift to you guys at the end of this class is I will save this. Davies, I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to ask all of you to go ahead and type in your email addresses into the chat. Davies is going to do a quick copy and paste and store it somewhere, so that by the end of class, I have a roster of who was in class today, and then I'm going to send you this contract sample. And then for anybody who needs it as a reference, you guys will have it. It'll come to you in an email from me. Fair enough? Give me some thumbs up. Yes. Make some noise in the background.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Good stuff. I should have asked if you wanted it instead of just assuming you wanted it. All right, good stuff. Here's why I make this such a big deal. It says, see Exhibit A, deed for legal for legal description. When I go to the property county appraiser's website and I scroll down a little bit, I know what the address is because it's clear, or we saw the property online. That's all great. You see here where it says abbreviated legal description. My challenge, unfortunately, is that too many agents, and most, in fact, will copy and paste that into this line right here. Oops, of course it didn't take it. But anyways, they'll copy and paste that into that line, and then they're okay with that, and that's okay. That's good. Here's the reality, and I want to be very clear because I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this side. I repeat, it is the abbreviated legal description. You will get both sides of the coin on this. You will get agents and attorneys and brokers who will tell you, that's enough, that's perfect, that's what it is, put it in there. I'm going to tell you, do your job. And you're going to hear that phrase come from me a couple of times today. So, Janine, hang out with me for a second. And I know I'm not putting you on the spot, just hang out with me.
Okay.
We went into DocuSign and we started to create this document, right? I know that you pulled up the Broward County Property Assessor's website, you scrolled down, and just like I had showed you before, you're going to go down a little bit and you're going to go and you're going to click on the wonderful little link that says the warranty deed, and you're going to click on that page. That page
I can't see the screen anymore.
Did the screen lose out for everyone?
Yeah, it's been gone for like 30 seconds.
No, it didn't.
I see everything.
You do?
I see it too. Mine's good.
Okay.
I see Sergio for some reason.
That's okay. Then, Janine, inside of your view, let me pause for 2 seconds. Inside of your view, you need to switch it back to the, Davies, help me out. Is that presenter view? It's who you're seeing. That's all that it is.
On the upper right-hand side, Janine, there should, and if you're using a desktop, if you're using a phone.
I'm on my iPad right now.
That's why.
You think that's
right.
why? Okay, sorry.
That's why. That's all right. So, Janine, hang out. That's okay. Let me go back to Pat. Can you hang out with me for a second? And Janine, no offense, just let me. I gotta.
That's okay.
You'll get your view fixed in a second. So, Pat, we went through those 3 screens, right? It took us. Take a guess. How long?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Love it. You see right here, lot 22, West Ridge 2, plat according to the map. Blah blah blah. You see that?
Yes.
Perfect. You can do a couple of things. That's the actual legal description of the property. The challenge is that most legal descriptions aren't this short. This just happens to be a very specific area in Davie, which obviously there's nothing else around. So there's a lot of acreage homes. So they're very simple. As you get into what I like to call suburbia, they get very complicated. They become almost page-long documents. If you were trying to copy that or to write that in there, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And what's worse is you're going to potentially make a mistake. All I'm asking you to do is to PDF a copy of this warranty deed, right?
Yes.
You can write your abbreviated legal description here if you want to underneath it, but you can say, see Exhibit A, deed for legal description. And guess what? Correct. You now have? You now have a concrete piece of paper that shows evidence that you did your job and did in fact look for who's the seller of the property. Do they actually have the right to convey the ownership? And 2, that you have the correct legal description. I'm going to repeat this phrase. There's never a problem until there's a problem, guys. At some point in your career, you're going to write a contract. The title company is then going to do their job. And believe me, they're going to do their job. And when they do their job and they find out, hey, Janine, I'm not picking on you. You just happen to be on my screen. Janine, I see that the legal description of your property doesn't match the folio number. We have a problem. You now have a contract that's technically not valid. All for, and Pat, repeat, how long did it take us to go through 3 screens, print screen? Let's take the time to print screen it into a PDF and save it as a file and attach it to your document. How long?
2 minutes.
Perfect. I'll take it. 2 minutes. Patricia, you're not wrong. It's just minutes of your life. Do your job. You're going to hear me say that phrase, and please no one take offense to it. It's literally that simple. All right. I'm going to pause there for any questions. Any questions so far on deed, folio numbers, address? How do we find the name of the owners? Why did I just spend almost 10 minutes going through this this section? And we've only gotten to line 10.
I'm sorry, I missed where you got. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, I missed where you got the legal description. Can you show me very quickly, please?
So inside of the Broward County Property Appraisers or the Miami-Dade Property Appraisers website, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a section where it starts showing you the warranty deeds that were recorded on the property. What I'm asking all agents to do is to look for, I'm sorry, you see the warranty deed right here? Actually, no, I did this wrong. See the warranty deed right here where it says recent sales in the subdivision, sales history for this parcel. I got it right. Sales history for this parcel. The last sale of the property was in 2013. Warranty deed, slide over. You see where it says page CIN?
Yes.
When you click that, it shows you the last recorded deed for the property. Save that as a PDF, attach it to your contract.
So,
and right here is the, I can't highlight it. This is the actual description of the property, the real legal description. Go ahead. Someone has a question.
I just wanted to confirm I understand what you're saying. So you're saying don't type in the legal description, just include an exhibit that you get from the warranty deed or whatever the most recent deed is, and that's going to be the description? Okay.
So you heard both parts of that. And so I'm going to be very clear. I'm never going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you some best practices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you that all too often, agents to cut corners will just copy and paste the abbreviated legal description, and you will get both sides of this argument. A lot of people will tell you that's fine. I'm going to tell you that the day there's a problem, that's going to be a problem. Most of the time, it probably won't ever show up, and it's not a big deal. But the day it's a problem, you're going to find yourself in hot water over something as simple as attach a copy of the deed, say, let's see legal description, warranty deed. And now no attorney can nullify the contract over something as simple as we mistyped a comma or a dot or a letter because we just didn't do it. All right, great question. All right, let's keep going. So yes, is that Susan?
No, Wendy?
Wendy, talk to me.
I think you just answered it sort of, but there's the reason that you attach rather than copying the legal description from the deed because you're to avoid.
You got it right, Wendy. It's
a comma or a period.
You got it spot on.
Okay.
Spot on. Yep. I want to alleviate, or let me rephrase that. I want to minimize any risk of my creating an error on it. Okay. Absolutely. And the other real answer, the other hidden answer is that some of these things are like a paragraph long. I'm going to make a mistake unless there's a way to physically copy and paste, which you don't have the room to copy and paste in there. All right, Tony, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, technically, if the deed if it was transferred over, say I bought it as a single man and it's a homesteaded property and now I'm married and selling it, don't they have an out if I didn't add the spouse on the contract?
I know where this question's coming from. I'm going to kind of leave it like this. If it's recorded, here's the real answer. If it's recorded and that's still what's showing up, for those of you that are following along on this, if not, if I'm going to lose some of you, don't panic. It's in the tax records that's still one way. If I write the contract without that name because there was a divorce decree or whatever the case is, I can promise you this, Tony, when they get to the closing table, someone who did their job is going to find the problem. It's showing up one way on tax records. I have a document that says the contrary. Someone's right, someone's wrong. At some point, someone's going to have to do their job and correct it either way. My goal when I do these items, or with the way that I teach it, is very simple, is I want to minimize the risk of anybody coming at the end and saying, oh, wait a minute, as a previous, and I'm just going to use an example. This is make-believe world. If I was a husband and I got divorced and I signed over any rights potentially to the property, and it didn't get updated in public records, nothing stops me from saying, you know what? No, I still have rights to that property, and I'm not signing the contract. My name's still technically on in public records. Now go figure it out, and I've just halted the whole sale. I know where that's coming from, Tony. What I don't want to get stuck on is if it's written in that way in public records, and you know differently as a buyer's agent or as a listing agent, I'm going to ask you to do your job and get someone involved on that transaction early, so that they get the title work fixed, or that they have the answer ahead of time so it doesn't become a problem at the end. Did that make sense? Okay. All right, let's have a little bit of fun with this. So the next line, it gets a little, I call it fun because it's you got to kind of just use your imagination for a moment, guys. The next section talks about personal property, unless excluded, right? So if I didn't write it, unless it's physically written in 1E, which is this section here, then everything that's attached as a fixture to the property is assumed that it's staying with the property. Guys, this got so delicate over the last couple of years that it even includes, to be specific, blinds, draperies, drapery rods. You guys see that? Here's what I want to make sure that you guys have some visualization for. If I'm a buyer's agent, Sergio, hang out with me on this. So if I'm a buyer's agent and I walk into these beautiful homes here in Southwest Ranches, right? And there are customers out there that have $50,000 chandeliers in their foyer. I'm not exaggerating. There's some crazy stuff out there. And I walk in and I see this beautiful chandelier and it's in there. Guess what I'm going to absolutely ensure that while I'm writing up this contract or while I'm showing the property, hey, is that chandelier included in the property? I'm going to ask. I don't want to assume it. If I assume it, I don't write it, and God forbid they take it prior to closing. Yes, could we potentially have a problem? Or better yet, why would I make it a problem if I can just avoid it? I wrote in here something else like a Viking gas stove. For any of you who know what a Viking gas stove, that's a $15,000, $20,000 stove. Yes, a stove. But if I go to a property and I see that that's in there, guess what? I'm going to take a quick picture of it, and I'm going to write in here includes the Viking gas stove. I want to be careful with how in depth I go here. I'm not telling you to name every single appliance like the Samsung Elite washer and dryer dual combo unit that's in red. Maybe you are that specific and you want to do it, feel free to do so. What you want to avoid is that there's any chance that a seller will come in after you've seen the property and say, well, no, it says stove. It didn't say Viking stove. So I replaced the Viking stove with a like stove that's only half the price. I'll use a phrase, and some of you who have seen me teach these classes have heard me say this before. Tell someone they can't have something that they already saw or assumed was theirs, and then it's a problem. So if I'm a listing agent, so let's play devil's advocate for a moment, Sergio. If I'm a listing agent and this is your house I'm selling, and that chandelier's in the foyer, and you tell me, Adrian, I don't want that chandelier, I want the chandelier, I'm going to keep it. Then I'm going to tell you flat out, Sergio, as the listing agent, I'm going to say, then Sergio, do me a huge favor, make that disappear before we start showing it. Right. Because the moment I show this property and someone sees it, they're going to assume it, and better yet, they're going to say that they want it. And the moment I write a contract and say, no, the chandelier's not included, now it becomes a problem. Tell someone they can't have something, it's always going to be a problem. It's never greeted with open arms. Oh, what, the chandelier that was in the foyer? He's not leaving it? No problem. I promise it'll be a problem. So as a listing agent, I want to make sure that you guys hear both sides of it. Make thorough inventory of the stuff that's in the property. If it's stuff that's worth noting, ask the seller, hey, is that staying? Is that leaving? And if it's leaving, get it out of the property before your showings. If you're a buyer's agent showing a property, make note of the big items and add them to the contract. It saves you a lot of challenges down the road. All right, I'm going to pause there for a second. We won't do too many more of these. These are just the fun items. Any questions on that? I'll take a couple of what ifs. What do you got? Hearing none. One, two.
So just to clarify, for D, that's so like this is the what as a buyer's agent, what you're presenting to the listing agent, and so D would be things that you would like the buyer would say, oh, I want that included in the deal. So D would be things that they
100%, Yossi.
They want, and then E is
correct.
What's E again? Like what they don't.
I'll get to E. We'll get to that in a second. But you're spot on, Yossi. What you heard exactly is what you heard. That if I walk in that front door with my buyer and I, as a buyer's agent, know that that's a $50,000 chandelier, I'm making note of it. Another one, I make fun of it all the time, but it drives me nuts that it can be such a problem at closing. A Tommy Bahama ceiling fan. And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, that's those ones that are very tropical. They look like giant palm fronds. They've got weird designs, but they're very elaborate and ornate. They're probably $8,000 ceiling fans. Yes, ceiling fan for $8,000. Anyways, long story short is if I see that, I'm making a note of it. I'm going to add that inside of that line. Great point. What? All right. Line E is exactly the opposite.
Also, Adrian, what about the Walmart wall mount TV and stand? Because that could be being attached. Couldn't that be claimed
so
closing day?
It could be, but here's the reality. And so when we talk about draperies, rods, I'll give you one that's probably not nearly as complex. Would you assume, and this is for everyone, if you see a mirror in a bathroom, and I'm not talking about one of those mirrors that's the flat, skinny mirror as big as they get. I'm referring to like a frame looking mirror. They're very ornate, especially nowadays. It looks like a frame. It's just real big. A seller has the opportunity to take that off the wall. It's being hung by nothing other than a nail and some string in most cases. Would you consider that a fixture? Or is that something the seller has every right to take on the sale?
It's a fixture.
Elvis, why is it a fixture? I love the answer. Why?
Because it's part of the real property. Actually, it's a real property. So when it comes to the subject property, anything that you nail in, and it's just, let's say I forgot how many days, but it's just been around for so long that it becomes part of the property.
So the second part of your answer is more in line with why it would be considered a fixture, because no bathroom, and here's kind of the assumption we've got to make, no bathroom is sold without a mirror, meaning if the mirror wasn't there when it was shown, well, guess what? It's not part of the house. It's not a fixture that was there when you saw it. But if it was there when we saw the house as part of the bathroom, which we can all pretty safely assume most of the homes that we sell or purchase have a mirror in them, then that would be considered a fixture. The argument I'm gonna throw back is, and I'll stay in, Elvis, I know you're driving, so you don't have to answer if you don't need to, but just think of this concept. What's the difference between that mirror and any frame that's hanging in the property? They're nailed to the property. It's nailed to the wall. It's hung by a string. And again, I don't want to create a whole whirlwind of opportunity here. I just want to make sure that you guys are thinking in context. If it seems like something that should be questioned, throw it in there. Go ahead, Elvis.
The frame is removable because it has a nail, so it's hanging. When it comes to the mirror, it's part of a property since it's attached, like you said. So that's the difference.
Right,
so
but the example, that's okay. The example that I'm giving though, Elvis, is that it's a mirror on a frame that's hung on the wall. It just happens to be in the bathroom.
Because
that's why I'm saying is that, guys, this is one of those opportunities that we can debate it, and it's an option, that it's an item that gets debated all the time. What becomes a fixture? I don't want you guys to start worrying about too much of it. At the end of the day, think of what's written in this line. If it's written in there, ceiling fans, disposers, dishwashers, ceiling fans, intercoms, light fixtures, stuff like that. If you don't specifically omit it, you can assume that it's part of the sale. What's going to run it, where you're going to run into a challenge, is if you go do your walkthrough and that Tommy Bahama ceiling fan is gone and they replaced it with a Walmart white fan. Does that make more sense? Because if it's something that's worth noting, note it, guys. That's it. It takes literally a few extra seconds for us to do our job and to protect our buyer from it. And if it's something that's truly not coming with the property, then the seller will let us know when they counter the offer. That's it. I kind of want to free you from it, but I wanted to give you some perspective. I'm going to give you another item here. So yes.
All right. So what about a situation? I think it's, good advice to remove it and then it's not an issue, but what if it's something that really helps to show the property well and, looks good in the pictures and gives the, potential buyers an idea of what can be done with the room.
So then that would be great. So that's from the perspective of the listing agent, at which point as a listing agent, and so this is for everyone to hear, as a listing agent, if you're showing a property and it's got some decor value, right? The Tommy Bahama ceiling fan, the nicer draperies and stuff that they're potentially thinking about taking, then it's up to the listing agent to convince the seller, hey, by the way, you paid for this to be custom in this home. Will this really match in your new home? And if it's really that important to you to take it, I'm going to encourage you to get rid of it now. Meaning, I don't want to show a property and then tell someone they can't have something. It's all perspective, guys.
Then if you think it'll help you sell the property?
I can tell you this, a $50,000 chandelier didn't sell the property.
Okay.
What I create is an argument if it's not there afterwards.
Okay. And it's not good enough to put it in the MLS and the broker remarks that it stays or something? You don't.
I'm gonna say it this way, Wendy, and I can't stress it enough because it's always what shows up. The moment I tell you you can't have it in your head, you now want it. It was never an issue. You're not buying a chandelier. You're not buying a Viking stove. But if I tell you you can't have it, now it's a problem. Now you're going to ask me, well, how do I get it? Well, can we make it as part of the offer? Can we include it in the price? And if the seller doesn't want, I've now created a scenario that I could have absolutely avoided.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
awesome.
In the case of
all right, guys, we got to move on.
You have to replace the stove with another stove to so it's not
before
there?
I show it. If that stove is that important to the seller, I'm going to ask them to replace it before we start showing the property. Yep. Okay. And that's from the perspective of a listing agent. Awesome. Great questions though, guys. Great perspective. I'm going to throw one in here and you guys can start thinking about them afterwards. If the seller was absolutely keeping something, which was not part of the sale, but it could be considered a fixture, I'm going to use one. My favorite example is the grill island in the patio. There's, a lot of customers, including myself, like these personal, very nice grills out there, and they're $5,000, $6,000 and up. Nope, I could just as easily put a couple wheels on that thing and roll it out of that house. And so that's what I'll choose to do, but I'll make sure that is noted as part of the exclusion. And there's a bunch of those. The sellers themselves will tell you what they are. I'm going to encourage you now as a listing agent, have a conversation with the seller. Is that item truly worth it? And I'm going to go back to that Viking stove because it's a conversation we had to have. And a customer had a Viking stove they wanted to remove because they wanted to give it as a gift to their daughter moving into a new home. And my answer to him was real simple, is that, do you even know what home she's purchasing? Do you know if this Viking stove will even fit in her home? And when you purchased it almost 12 years ago, it was worth $15,000. What's it worth today? $3,000, $4,000? At that point, why don't you just gift her the money and she can get her own Viking stove or whatever comparable item is newer and she doesn't get your hand-me-down. Again, it's all perspective. It's how you present it. That's up to you guys. All right, I got to move on. Hopefully that was helpful. And guess what, guys? We're only on line 26. Woo! I promise. We'll move a little bit faster on some of these other ones. All right, purchase price. This is pretty simple. It's what you negotiate with your buyer and your seller that you guys agree that's important for you guys to get the deal. I'm going to assume a make-believe price of $450,000. The next one. So we talk about, I think it was Leticia who said make the offers more attractive, right? We're going to put in here, or my make-believe number is 12,000. So I'm going to throw that up for some discussion. Do you guys have a rule of thumb of how much you put into escrow? And I know that the answer that most agents want to put out there is as little as possible. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily the best answer. So talk to me a little bit about what you feel is appropriate to put into escrow.
5%.
Coaches, feel free to chime in. All right, so I heard 5%, 10%. Give me some more. What do you guys, is there a rule of thumb, and back it up? Why?
Of asking price.
How much down payment? How much down payment they have to secure their home?
Okay,
So,
I like that. I like that answer for what it's. I like that answer for what it's worth, Elvis. In terms of, if they're financing $450,000, I've got to assume that they're probably not getting any loan for less than 5%. And at some point, how much of that 5% are they willing to put at risk in order to get the home? I get that answer. That's fair enough for me. Give me some more answers, guys. So I heard 5%, as much money as they have in order to secure the purchase.
I ask them if they have 20%, if they've been able to save up 20%, because 20% will avoid PMI.
Fair enough. So I want to make sure. So Leticia, you bring up a good point, and I want to make sure that we create some distinction. The down payment is the down payment. The amount they're putting into escrow is what I like to call the skin in the game.
Oh, okay, okay.
Very different. Great point. I want to make sure that we clear it up, though. This is how much skin in the game are you willing to put in? Barry, or is that John? Talk to me, John.
Yeah. I try to tell my buyers that the deposit indicates to the seller how serious you are about wanting that home. The more money you can put down, between 5 and 10%, tells the seller this is a serious offer, as opposed to somebody going in with $3,000, $5,000 down on a $500,000 home. They're saying this guy's just fishing to see if he can possibly get me to buy. But if they put down 20, 30, 40, whatever 5% is, 5 to 10% is, it tells the seller they're serious. And if in a multiple offer situation and they have to choose, they're going to choose the more serious offer.
So I absolutely agree with that perspective, John, in that it's the skin in the game. The more that there is, the better opportunity it is that the seller looks at it and says, oh, they're putting more skin in the game. They're more serious about it. There's less likelihood that they're just fishing to see if they can get an offer. And here's the flip side of that coin, guys. And and again, I'm going to be very transparent with you guys. As a buyer's agent, I don't want my buyers to put so much money that they inevitably put their money at risk. But here's the reality. I have to know how to protect their money. I have to know that I have to have a very specific conversation with my customers. So Patricia, I see you on the screen, so I'm going to pick on you for a second. If you're the buyer, I'm going to explain very flat out. Patricia, in order for you to ensure in today's landscape of how competitive the market is, I want to make sure that you get a yes. I don't want to just throw an offer out there because you like the property. I want to try to make sure that you get this property because I don't want to waste your time. And quite frankly, I don't want to waste mine either. So how much do you have that we can officially say, hey, this is how much risk we're willing to put, meaning my seriousness is directly tied to how much money you're putting into this property in terms of the risk. So let's say Patricia tells me 12,000. What I want to make sure that I have a conversation with Patricia is, Patricia, there's going to be about 2 other opportunities in this contract by which, if for some reason there's something wrong with this property by which you do not feel comfortable moving forward, or the costs exceed your ability to ownership on this property, I'm going to throw out a release and cancellation, and you got to be willing to walk away from it. If the answer is yes, then let's move forward. If the answer is no, then we don't even need to write this offer. I'm going to pause there for a second. What'd you guys hear?
Repeat that again, please. Yes, please.
So listen, for those of you who have been in my class, give me the script, give me the script. It's the sprinkle, right? But they said at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I don't waste your time or my time. My goal is to get you this offer said yes to. The amount of money that we put in escrow is directly tied to your willingness of risk. I want to make sure that you understand that there's a couple of opportunities in our contract, and we'll talk about them in just a few minutes, but there's a couple of opportunities in our contract by which if this home is no longer affordable for you, or more importantly, during your inspection period, if there's something by which financially you are unable to cover the expense of moving forward, I need to know that you're okay to walk away from this, because one of my primary responsibilities is to protect that money. And if I tell you, Patricia, we need to walk away from this, and you've got to be able to walk away from this. If you tell me no, it's not a big deal, and we move forward, I want to make sure that you understand that that risk of that $12,000 just went up. The closer we get to closing, the risk continues to go up until we close this house and give you the keys. Fair enough? And again, you heard me do a small variation of that, but I think you guys got what you need from that. The flip side of this, guys, is let me stop share because I want to give you a perspective. And Elvis, please don't look at the screen. I don't want you to get into any trouble there, but let me try something. I want to make sure that you guys know this. This is the part that drives me nuts. I see this all the time. I'm going to write a nice little box and I'm going to put a 5K. Does anybody understand what that means, what that represents? A $5,000 deposit. You got it. Do you guys know what happens when someone calls me and says, hey, Adrian, buyer and seller want to fight over $5,000. The deal's falling apart. And someone says to me, well, the listing agent is saying that the seller is going to lay a claim to the $5,000. They're going to claim it. Deals running amok. It's happening. Do you guys know what happens to that $5,000 in most scenarios? I'll tell you. The way that our contracts are written, you have to understand that there's a unilateral agreement between the seller and the listing agent or the listing broker. That agreement stipulates in part what happens to this $5,000. In most of our listing agreements, 99% of the agents will say that if there is ever an escrow dispute, 50% of the collected funds of the escrow amount that is in dispute is up for grabs for the broker, which basically means this. If you just heard what I said, $5,000 is in escrow. Let's assume that the seller is in fact awarded the 5,000. How much does the seller actually get?
Not much.
2,500.
You got it. My challenge then becomes, do you guys know what happens to the other 2,500?
It splits between brokerage.
So when you say split between brokers, what does that mean?
So it goes 50-50.
Correct. Broker A and broker B. So let's just assume that broker A is the listing agent and broker B is the buyer's agent. That amount is then split between that. And so here's my challenge, guys. Is a buyer more willing to walk away from $5,000, or are they more willing to walk away from what's our number on the other side, on the other page, 14,000? Which one is easier to walk away from?
12,000. 12,000.
12,000.
5,000.
And the reality is that they're more likely to walk away with 2,500 at the end of the day. So what I want to make sure, and I don't want to get into crazy specifics here, I just want to make sure that you guys understand the reason that I preach to you guys got to get your escrows up. Stop worrying about these tiny escrow deposits. They're killing you. One, they don't get offers said yes to. So you're not doing your buyer or you a service. You're not getting the contract. Make sure that there's skin in the game. Find out and have a very serious conversation with you and the buyer. How much can you afford to risk? Know that my job is to protect that risk at all points in the contract. And if I tell you we're at a point in the contract where we're at risk of losing the deposit, are you ready to move forward, or do I get you out of this contract? That's how black and white I've got to be able to have a conversation with my buyer. If the answer is no, we're out. Here's my release and cancellation. We have provisions in the contract that are written for that. Otherwise, put some skin in the game, because the buyer is less likely to walk away from a small issue if there's some money on the line. That's as point blank as I can be. All right.
Adrian?
Go for it, Wendy.
On that point, do you think it's vital to put the whole, because it looks like you have zero on this additional deposit, like you're putting the whole amount up front first.
Great point.
Is it
yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Is it as beneficial or more beneficial to put it all up front versus putting a small deposit, as many people do, and then once you have the inspection and you go hard, as they say, putting up the rest of the deposit?
I'm not going to use the term because it's just funny to me. That's where some agents will argue with me that it's strategy, right? At the end of the day, I firmly believe that this is an opportunity to show what you have as an agent, or to get this offer said yes to. I'm a big fan of put it on the table. If 12,000 is your buyer's max, put it out there. That's what their max is, 12,000. Get the offer and get it said yes to.
In a multiple offer situation,
will say, well, why don't we offer 5,000 up front after inspections if everything goes well? Doesn't make any difference if I made a second deposit. I do understand the theory behind we can tier our deposits, and as we go through different stages of the contract. At the end of the day, I want a yes. So if I can beat out all the other $3,000 and $5,000 escrow deposits that are coming in because other agents just don't know any better, or they don't know to negotiate it that way, then I want to beat them out anyway. So just give me what it is that you have in terms of what's the risk that I can put on this property. My job is to protect it along the lines of the contract. That's it. It's perspective. Some agents want to do it the other way, and that's okay. I certainly won't make them wrong. I just prefer to put it all up front. I think it's an easier strategy. Here's the crazier part, Wendy. If you do it the other way, where you tier it, not saying that you shouldn't or that it's not good in some scenarios. My challenge is that now you got to worry about, okay, well, 7 days later, 8 days later, I got to throw in another deposit. I've got to collect it. I've got to make sure that it's in there, it's recorded. I've got to ask the title company for a secondary deposit letter verification. and why. At the end of the day, if it's the same amount of money that they were willing to risk, just risk it up front, then I've got to protect it throughout my contract. That's my take.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, let's keep moving. So this next portion right here, pretty simple. And again, I don't like blanks. So you're going to see a lot of the way that I teach this is don't leave the blanks. I know that everything that's blank, they'll say something, if blank, then 3 days. Well, I like using this phrase again. Do your job. How long does it take you to physically type in the word 3 days?
2 seconds.
Type it in. I don't want it up for discussion. 2 seconds. I love it, Patricia. All right. So I say that I always like to, I always like that the escrow is to be made within 3 days. Now, I'm going to get all brokery on you for a second. Elvis, I think I can pick on you for a moment. We get our contract accepted today. Mm-hmm. When does the customer have to make that escrow deposit?
3 days from now. So if I receive that escrow deposit, I have 24 hours to bring it over to.
Love it. You've got it. So I can tell that I picked on Sergio. I picked on the right person. Elvis, here's the better answer. And I'm going to say this for everyone, right? And I want to just make sure that everybody, although it's in humor, I mean it. I'm as serious as a coronary. ASAP is the phrase that I want to make sure that you guys get in your heads. When is the deposit due? ASAP.
ASAP.
ASAP. Don't play with that. Don't play with that number. Don't dwell on it. Don't think about it. So Sergio, if you were the buyer, right? Because we want to always make sure that you have the ammunition you need and present this from the buyer's perspective. I'm going to say, Sergio, here's the good news. When our offer is accepted, you have ASAP to get $12,000 over to close on time, title, and escrow. By the way, I'm going to give you title and escrow's phone number. I'm going to give you the title and escrow's information, email address, and their physical address. You have ASAP from the moment we get this contract accepted to take that check, go over to title and escrow, and drop your check off. Some of you might argue with me, and I don't want to get into the debate. I'm just giving you the perspective of what should work for you. I don't want the responsibility of taking a $12,000 check to someone. Here's a bigger opportunity. What does Sergio, the buyer, gain by going directly to the title company and dropping off $12,000? I'll wait for some feedback. What do you guys have?
The escrow letter.
Sergio go to that title company to drop off a $12,000 check. Fair enough. I like that. What else? There's more to that. It's a bigger component behind that.
Oh, he's there one-on-one with the title company.
One more time, Elvis.
And they saw him. So they're going to ask him for his identification.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what I heard you say is that he's going to take some ownership in handing over $12,000. Do you think there's some pain associated with handing someone $12,000?
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I don't hand people. Yeah, I don't hand people $12,000 every day. I don't hand people $5,000 every day. So there is some ownership in this process. I need my buyer, Sergio, to have some ownership in this process. I can't allow myself to do everything for the sake of customer service. He needs to have the ownership. He needs to develop the relationship because, by the way, make no mistake about it, guys. He's paying title to do this, to do their job. They're not doing it for free. And because they're not doing it for free, he's taking their check. He's got some ownership. He's got a stake in the game. He knows where they're located. He knows them face to face. He's got their phone number now. Fair enough. All right, I don't want to beat a dead horse. So for those of you who heard what you needed to hear, I hope that you take that perspective to light and get your buyers to go do their, to take ownership of this part. It's kind of like driving up to the property. I know that agents will argue with me all the time in that, oh, we should all go in the same car. Great, go in the same car, but let the buyer drive. There has to be some ownership in this process. By the way, when you go to buy a car, they make you test drive it for a reason. They want you to have that ownership feeling. They want to put you behind the wheel. Well, I want to put the buyer behind the wheel. I want to put the buyer behind the wheel of handing that check. It's important. All right, good. ASAP, you got 3 days, and they need the letter. By the way, you've got to ask for the letter. The letter is the verification of escrow letter. I'm not gonna get into compliance right now, but just know that you got to make a deposit. Call your buyer and say, hey, did you make the deposit? Yes, great. Your next call is close on time, title, and escrow. Can I get the verification of escrow deposit so that I can put it into the file and send it to all parties? I'll leave it right there. We got to move on. All right. The next couple of lines are pretty simple, guys. You put the name and the information of the title company. I asked Sergio very point blank to put the name of the company in his phone, because when it comes time to wire information, meaning when we get closer to the closing table and the title company sends out their wire, I need Sergio to call the number associated with the title company that's in his phone. Happening. So I want to make sure that he has that. He has it up front, and he has to develop a relationship with them anyways. I put financing expressed as 95%. The financing is going to come, that answer has always come from your lender. What I don't want you guys to do is to write these contracts by yourselves with no cooperation from anybody else, which means when you write this contract, as you get to this last section, pick up the phone, have a conversation with the lender and say, hey, by the way, I have your pre-approval letter. It says here 95%. Is that the right number? Did they change? Did any circumstances change between now and the time that we're getting in the property? By the way, here's a better answer. And I'm going to give you the script. Elvis, you can be my lender. So ring.
Hello.
Hey, Elvis, this is Adrian with Keller Williams Realty over here in Weston. You got 2 seconds for me? We represent Sergio, a mutual customer of ours. We're putting in an offer for a property. Can I run a scenario by you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Elvis, Sergio is purchasing a $450,000 property. Taxes are about $15,000. We can assume that the taxes and insurance and the homeowners, I keep saying insurance, the insurance premium on the property is somewhere around $6,000 a year. I have here, I want to confirm that they're financing 95% of the property. Is that correct?
That's absolutely. It seems correct.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Do the ratios still look in line to be able to write this offer, or is there any adjustment I need to make on that you can see foreseeably on your end?
Not at all.
Perfect.
Sounds accurate.
Sergio, Elvis, last question I have for you is, we're trying to close this out by December 21st because they want to be in there before Christmas. Can we get this done?
Absolutely.
All right. And so Elvis, real fast, last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to fast forward. This will make sense as we get to the next page, guys. So Elvis, I'm going to fast forward real fast, is I'm putting on here 42 days, and see if someone catches me. I'm going to put 42 days loan commitment. Is that enough, or can you do it in a shorter amount of time?
Usually it takes about 30 to 45 days. Sometimes there is an extension of 60 days. So hypothetically, right now, we currently do not know if it could get accomplished by that time. If it does, then
I got to put a number up there. Give me a number that you can stick to. What's your best guess number, Elvis? How many days for the loan commitment?
45 days.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Awesome. Thanks for taking the call. We'll be in touch. Let's see if we get this accepted. All right, great. We're done with that. What I want to make sure that you guys heard is that I didn't write this contract by myself. I didn't assume that the lender can get the loan commitment to me in 40 days, 30 days, 32 days, or some god awful unforeseen numbers like 18 days. I've seen contracts written with 15-day loan commitment periods. I'm going to be I'm going to put on my brokery hat for a second. I don't care if the lender says they can do it in 15 days. For the love of all that is holy, please do not write 15-day loan commitment on your contracts. If you understand the landscape of the lending industry right now, they are flooded. Even the fastest lenders who can do it in short amount of times end up being strained, which means all the resources, their underwriters, the processors, the openers of the files and all that fun stuff, they're stretched so thin in most cases that even if they could do it, please don't write 15 days. Stretch it out to 22 days and you'll still get a better offer commitment. Because again, I know that as agents, when we get to that section of the contract, that's one of those terms right, Barry, that we were talking about. That's one of those terms that if we can reduce the amount of loan commitment period, it makes our offer more attractive against others. But we've got to be very careful that if I get that number, it's coming directly from the lender. I didn't assume it. I didn't force the lender to do it. And I didn't write this contract by myself. All right. I'm going to pause there because it's a lot to take in off of one page. And the biggest bulk of how you write this contract comes right from this first page. Sergio, go for it.
No, what I'm saying is you got his verbal confirmation about the date, right? So now you put it in the contract, and then when they sign it or they initially, that's how they accept it, because right now it was verbal, what he said.
Correct. All I wanted to do is what I want to make sure that everyone on this call heard is that when I wrote this contract, I got the buyer's lender on the phone, assuming that there's a financing contingency on this property, and that I have their buy-in to get this offer done. The second part that I want to make sure that you guys heard is that I didn't just assume that the price, taxes, and insurance of the property, because those are three very important factors, or in some cases, well, actually in most cases here in West Broward, the HOA, in fact, because all those numbers contribute to what's called a debt to income ratio. If I write this contract assuming, oh, well, he's got approved for $450,000, but his ratios are really tight because it's an FHA loan, then I may have just wasted everyone's time. We get our offer accepted because we put, nice terms in there. And 3 weeks into this process, the lender says, well, wait a minute, the HOA and the taxes put him way out of whack, even though it's $450,000. Something I could have avoided by making a phone call, like we did with Elvis 2 minutes ago.
And you got those figures from the net. You got those figures from the net proceeds sheet that eventually probably the title company gave it to you. The insurance and
so I like where you're going with that, Sergio. Yeah, the net proceeds sheet's important for the seller, not necessarily for the buyer. Because if you're presenting this from the prospect of the seller, then yeah, the seller wants to know how much they're going to net at the end of it. What I want to make sure you guys heard is that the conversation with the buyer's lender is in fact very specific. Here's my price, here's my taxes, my insurance, and your best guess, based on what you can see, do the ratios fall in line? If the answer is yes, great. Here's what I expect. Here's what I hope to be a closing date. Can we get this done? If the answer is yes, then great. Then write your contract.
But your figures are not 100% accurate, are just an estimation.
I'm glad. Yeah, correct. It's a great estimation. Guys, give me some more feedback on this. This is a big section right here. What else did you guys hear? What'd you feel? What'd you get? Did I lose anybody? Now's your chance.
Make sure you don't put the closing date on like the last day of the month or a day when it's, the holiday, or something like that.
Not on Friday.
I love John. John, do you know why I'm laughing so much? Because it's one of the components that that I always argue. It takes seconds to open up a calendar, right? Because it's a calendar, it's our job, right? And because a lot of agents will literally just say, okay, well, today's the 13th, 30 days from now is December 13th, we can get this done. But what they don't look at is you're going to lose almost an entire week in the month of November due to Thanksgiving. I can promise you, between Thanksgiving, Black Friday, so many companies basically start to shut down the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and they don't pick up until the following Monday. You lose a couple of days in between that. Add Veterans Day to that stuff, and man, you've got a whole handful of reasons that check your dates. John couldn't have said it better. Open your calendar, take a look, make sure that it doesn't fall on a Saturday or a Sunday. Make sure that please don't write it on the last day of the month. As a broker for compliance in this office, please, guys, I'm promising, please don't write your contracts on the last day. I know why some agents choose to do it. They think that it's saving the buyer from having to make their payment for another 2 months. Don't get stuck in that, guys. Make sure that your contracts can close. And the last caveat I'll give you, because Barry would not be happy if I didn't at least talk about it, is please don't close on a Friday. Barry, do you want to explain why we don't close on a Friday?
The kids, we get complicated. You don't have the time to do it. You have to wait the weekend and then start all over on Monday.
I like that you said we get complicated. Let me stay right there. So assuming in a perfect world, it's Friday. I wrote the closing for Friday. Everybody closes. Everybody's happy. That's congratulations. Yay. We all celebrate. God forbid, there's a problem. Now Friday comes. Guess when is the buyer potentially closing?
Monday.
You know why they're not closing on Monday? Because the title company already had stuff scheduled for Monday. You guys at the best are closing on Tuesday.
If you're lucky.
And if you're the buyer, yeah, you're right. I love that phrase because that's exactly what it is. If you're lucky, you'll close on Tuesday. So if you can avoid it, my point to this is super simple, guys. If you can close on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I like the middle of the weekdays because it affords the buyers the opportunity that if there's a problem, great, you've got a day or two to correct it. They're still in before the weekend. Everybody doesn't go crazy. Imagine if you would for a moment, you're scheduled to close on a Friday. The buyer has all their stuff in a moving truck, but for some reason, the closing's delayed. They just now paid for that moving truck for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and potentially Tuesday. That never feels good, guys. All right.
Adrian,
we gotta move on. Everybody.
To that point,
Go ahead, Wendy.
I would also say if you are really, set on your title company, someone you work with or your buyer really wants to use, I would make a second phone call when you're doing that offer and call them and make sure that they're not going to be on vacation. I mean, depending on how big the office is, right? But if there's a particular person you work with or whatever, you want to make sure they're not on vacation or they're not going to be closed on the day that you're thinking of closing, because it's not good to have a contract accepted, your closing date is set, and then you find out they're not available and you got to go right back and try to change the closing date.
Great point, Wendy. She just gave you gold. So if you heard anything, make sure that you're developing forging those relationships with your partners, whether it's your lender, whether it's your title company. A quick phone call saves you a world of frustration at the end. Love it. Great
One more
point,
thing about closing date. The closing date is the closing date. It's not on or before. It's not sometime around. It's if you choose a specific date, you should plan on being that date. And it's unlikely that it's going to happen before unless something else happens.
John, you bring up a great point. It's the last one that I'll take on this one so we can move on. Here's my indigestion. I'll share it with everyone. Where that comes from is I represent the buyer. John's the listing agent. Great. We write our contract date to close on December 21st. Great. Everybody's working towards December 21st. The lender is a rock star. They're ready 12 days from today. The buyer's ready. Now the buyer says, can we close early? And then we, as buyer's agents, start asking everybody. I start asking John, hey, John, can we close early? Can we close early? And John says, sure, assuming that the seller and everybody and their parties are ready to close early, we can close early. And then I say, John, well, can you give me a date of when you think that might be? And John might even say something like, well, you know what? Instead of the 21st, let's try to shoot for the 15th, right? Just throwing a number out there. Come the 15th, as a buyer's agent, I cannot expect to close on the 15th, meaning we have a contract that's written for the 21st. That's our closing date. If we have not received the CD and everything is ready to close by that time, please don't start selling the buyer the opportunity to close early. You're going to drive everyone crazy. You're going to create some enemies along the way. And what's worse is at the end of the day, if all parties agree to it, great. If everything is done, title work and everything is all scheduled for, HOA applications and approvals, if they're all done beforehand, congratulations, you guys can celebrate an early closing. If not, don't push it. I promise. It's John makes an incredibly well first point. Okay.
Thanks
Let's
so
move
much.
on,
I
guys.
appreciate it.
Was that a question?
Oh, Adrian, not at all. I thought I had
a lot to
myself mute.
No issues, no issues. I love it. All right, let's keep going. So at the end of the day, we're on page 2, where I'm going to go straight to this financing section. I want to make sure that you guys are very clear on this. So the first one in financing, paragraph 8, section 8 is pretty simple. If they're paying cash, congratulations, do a backflip. You've got a great buyer. If they're paying financing, which is the landscape that most of us are seeing today, this contract is contingent upon the buyer obtaining what type of loan. Please don't check all of them, guys. And I'm going to slow down. Janine, let's assume for a moment that your buyer is scheduled to close FHA, right? That's what their pre-approval letter is for. That's what you wrote in your contract instead of conventional. You checked on FHA. Great. You wrote loan commitment, that they're loaned within 42 days, that they're applying for it within 5 days. They're asking for the prevailing market rate. I don't put specifics because I'm not a lender. It shifts all the time. And don't you guys ever get caught quoting interest rates. That's not your job. Stay in your lane. I'm going to use that phrase. Stay in your lane. It is not your job to say, oh, well, the interest rates are around 3%. Please don't do that. That's the lender's job. Let them do that. All right. And then for a term of at least 30 years. Great. So I put all that stuff in. Janine, let's assume for a moment that at the middle of the process, your buyer's lender calls you and says, hey, we have an issue. FHA is not going to work. They're going to have to switch to conventional. Is it because they say, well, we can still get the loan done in the 42 days. We don't have to change anything. Do you have to notify anybody? Or can you leave it as FHA and then close conventional towards the end?
I'm really new, so I'm just going to kind of use my common sense, but I don't know the answer.
Fair enough.
I would assume if you've already done the contract, that it needs to be.
The short and sweet of that is, that's a very common scenario, guys.
Adrian, you're kind of breaking.
You're cutting out.
Yeah.
Oh no. How about now? Am I back?
Better.
A little better?
No, I was going to just say that I think you have to stick with whatever you put in the contract.
Janine, you're not wrong. Here's the short and sweet of it. Whatever you wrote on the contract, that's contractual. That is what I'm held to. If there is a change in the terms, including the type of financing, I need to throw out an addendum. An addendum that says buyer is switching from FHA to conventional. All other terms and conditions stay the same. Or buyer is switching to conventional and requires an additional 10 days loan commitment period, new loan commitment period date blank. Why?
Because you're changing the terms of the contract.
100%. And 100%, because under the FHA guidelines, the property has to appraise because there's an FHA addendum, and I'm not going to get into some craziness now, but there's an FHA addendum that requires an appraisal that says the property must appraise. If I switch it over to conventional, believe it or not, there's no financing contingency under conventional. I either create another addendum for that separate, and I want to make sure that what you guys heard is very simple, is that if the terms change, I don't care what the terms are, you got to address them. Don't just assume that because the lender says, well, we can still get it done within the 42 days, we'll close on time, and it's not a big deal. If you're changing loan styles, make sure that you notify it. You've got to keep your contract upholdable, enforceable. Thank you, Wendy. I knew that you'd come into my head at some point. All right. Any questions on this section? Because I gotta keep moving. So I just want to make sure that I didn't lose anybody on this one little section. Gets us into so much trouble. Did you call the lender and find out how many days loan commitment period did you have? Did you make sure that when you write in the prevailing interest rate, please don't get stuck quoting interest rate. That's not your job. Leave it as prevailing. It's safe because whatever it adjusts to, that's not your job to interpret. That's for the lender to deal with the buyer. Leave it at prevailing interest rate. If you know that it's for a term of 15 years, great, you can write it for 15, but in most cases, we know that it's 30. And last but not least, I don't like blanks, so please, for the extra few seconds that it takes, as Patricia said, 2 seconds, type in the don't leave blanks, 5 days, 3 days, whatever it is, which means that they've got to make application to the loan within that time. Any questions so far? Concerns? What do you got? What'd you hear? So far, so good? Give me some feedback, guys. Remember, I'm staring at like 2 people. All right, good. Love it. Thank you.
We're good.
Love it, love it, love it. Last thing I'm going to leave right here is you see where it says here on the 5 days or whatever you make it. Please make sure that the buyer actually, in fact, applied for the loan. I can't tell you how awful this is, where we write a contract. We do all this work of showing the property, negotiating the deal, writing the contract, getting it accepted, and then the buyer, I don't know, forgets to apply and doesn't actually follow the process. And now guess what happens, guys? If they haven't applied within the 5th day, if the lender starts their process on day 10 and that listing agent gets wind of that, we are technically in default of this contract. That escrow deposit is now technically up for grabs. Horrible oversight, and it's something so simple that a phone call can make. All right, enough preaching. Let's keep going. All right, next couple of lines here. Closing costs, title insurance. These ones are pretty simple. Title evidence, I like to leave it blank, or I'm sorry, I like to leave it at the same 15 days, which just means that 15 days prior to the closing date, sorry, 5 days prior to the closing date, I've got to have evidence of title insurance, and all that fun stuff. That one's pretty simple. I'm not going to make too much of it. This one, most agents I find get it wrong. So I'm just going to explain it. On lines 158 through 163, it basically asks you to say, and I'm going to read it because you guys got to get it. The seller shall designate a closing agent and pay for the owner's policy. Or B, where it says buyer shall designate a closing agent and pay for the owner's policy. Or option 3, Miami-Dade Broward regional provisions. Anyone want to take a stab at this one? Which one should we check off? Any reasons why, yay, nay? Give me some feedback. What's been your rule of thumb?
Isn't it buyer?
So I know where that comes from. Buyer in the state of Florida, no one can force a buyer to use a specific closing or escrow company or title company, which means yes, the buyer has the right to choose. That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that's what has to happen. Give me some more.
Oh.
Someone give me some more perspective. Which one do you choose and why?
Not applicable?
Nope. You got to pick one. Either the seller does the title, either the buyer does the title, or you get the Broward, Miami-Dade Broward regional provision.
The seller does the title.
Broward, Miami-Dade, because that's where the blue check mark is.
Yeah.
Hey. I love it. All right, so let me explain why. Here's the short, sweet, and simple. For 90+% of your contracts, unless you're selling property in West Palm Beach, Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie, or anything like that, please check the Miami-Dade regional provision. Basically what it means is that I, the seller, am going to do my part of the title paperwork. The buyer, I will pay for my side of the buyer's paperwork and title process. I don't want to overcomplicate it more than that, because for the most part, we can spend an entire hour just talking about these three options. On an occasion, you're going to get a seller that says, no, I want control of title. Seller will choose. I want to make sure that you guys understand that you're not giving up control. What that means in terms of the buyer's money is that it's about a $300+ savings to the buyer. Don't quote me on that. And that's why the only reason sometimes I'm always skeptical is what we record. But at the end of the day, please, guys, just make this simple. If you're selling property in Miami-Dade or Broward, please check the Miami-Dade Broward regional provision. The way title companies operate, everybody does their own title work. It's pretty simple. It works. It's easy. If you have a buyer and a seller that insist that they would like to do their own, great. Then choose the one that's appropriate to them. Buyer chooses or the seller chooses. Just know that there's a cost implication to each one of them. Either the seller does it, the seller is going to pay for it, which is a savings of about $300, give or take, in our current landscape to the buyer. Or if the buyer chooses to pay for it because they want control of it, congratulations, the buyer pays for it. It's going to cost them an additional $300 in title work. Any questions there? I'm going to leave that right there.
I'm working with a buyer in Port St. Lucie. Do you have any recommendation for me on this?
Absolutely. So if the way that I would explain it to the buyer, what's the buyer's name so I can be specific?
The buyer's name is our Change.
So Mr. Change, I'm going to make this super easy for you. The title work has to get done on this property, regardless of who does it. If the seller does it, just know that if we choose to select that the title work and the title process gets done by the seller, it's about a $300, $400 savings to you. Don't quote me because every title company charges a little bit differently. If you would like to have it done by your company, meaning if you have a title company that you've worked with in the past, or if you have a friend in title that you feel more secure knowing that they have control of the title paperwork or that you trust, then just know that there's a cost addition to you of about $300 to $400. And I encourage you to make the phone call and just let me know which one you choose. Fair enough?
Yes.
That's it. It's not mine to choose. And I certainly will never push a buyer or a seller to go either way. It's their decision. I just got to make sure that they know why. And if they don't know why, call a title company. I'm telling you, this is one of those opportunities to get some perspective, guys. This is where we build those relationships with the title companies, as Wendy said. They'll give you a better take on that.
You can Google title insurance calculators in Florida. It's based on the purchase price. It does change depending on the purchase price. And you can Google title insurance calculator, put in your purchase price, and it'll tell you how much it is.
Correct. Just be careful, guys. Like I said, I'm a big fan of stay in your lane. My only pushback on your answer, Wendy, would be, hey, here's a website that you can calculate what it would cost you to go either way. Does that make sense? I don't want to be the one giving the number because then I'm the one liable for giving that number. Okay, I think you got it. Home warranty. I'm going to leave this one pretty simple. I like to consider this my trump card, and no, not in the political landscape, just it's my trump card. I want to make sure that you guys understand what that is. That means that the buyer either chooses or agrees to pay for a specific value up to for a home warranty. The reason that I don't really want anybody filling this out right now is because if it shows up in the future in your contract negotiations, you may have inadvertently sold yourself short. And I'll give you an example. So someone might say that the seller will pay for a issued by a mayor. That the seller will pay up to $500 for a policy from American Home Warranty. And what that means is that from the get-go, because it might be a negotiating strategy, right? You're telling the seller on this contract, they're going to pay $500 at the closing in the form of a credit to the buyer so that the buyer can go and get that home warranty and put it on the property. Here's what I would prefer that you do. Go get your inspections. If your inspections reveal that there's problems with the appliances, or that they're super old, then use that as a negotiation tool, because here's what never happens. Renee, are you available to hang out with me on this one?
Yes.
Awesome. So Renee, imagine this for a moment. We just saw this house and it's got appliances that it looked like the good Lord when, you know, they're as old as the good Lord when he was walking the earth, right? They're old, but they're working. The inspection report reported that they're all working, but they're old. And you're concerned that, you know, how long are they going to be working for? After inspections, I'll negotiate something. I can tell you that here's what I'll do, Renee. If they are in fact a problem or a potential problem to you, after the inspection report, I'd rather negotiate a home warranty for you. And Renee, what that does for you as the buyer is this, is that no seller is going to say, hey, Renee, I know that you just came and saw my house that I've loved, cared for, put money, sweat, tears, and equity into over the last 15, 20 years. You spent all of 5 minutes looking at my house and then critiqued the hell out of it in a matter of 5 seconds in a contract. And when you saw it for 5 minutes, you said that my appliances are too old and that they need to be replaced, and they need to either be all replaced with new ones or that you need a credit of $5,000. You know that there is not one seller on the planet that's going to say, oh my gosh, where has this customer been my entire life? I am dying to sell my house to Renee. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Perfect. What I would rather do, Renee, for you is this, is that let's get to the inspection. If the inspection reveals that there's a problem, we're going to ask the buyer to fix it. I'm sorry, the seller to fix it or to replace that particular item. Better yet, if we feel that there might just be a little more leverage or I can give you some peace of mind, then let's see if I can negotiate a home warranty for you, which just means this. Assuming that everything goes well on your inspections and you're still willing to move forward on this purchase, you're going to go out and purchase a home warranty from any home warranty company of your choosing. And then I'm going to ask the seller to give you that in the form of credit towards your closing costs. So if the policy of the home warranty is $500 for the year, great. Then you're going to go buy a $500 policy, and at the closing table, the seller will give you a closing credit of $500. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. That's the only reason, guys, that and again, my goal is to always give you the ammunition, like Sergio said, from the perspective of the buyer, and hopefully that helps a little bit, is that I hear some of the language, hear some of the vocabulary, use it at your discretion. I don't like giving away the house up front. If it's a tool that I can use in my negotiation strategy, I would rather use it later than to try to get them to give me everything up front, and then I've got no ammunition later. I hope you guys got what that means. Any questions, concerns? We're going to move on. Someone give me a thumbs up so I know that we're there. All
Credit
right. Love
for
it,
the
Sergio.
first year of the warranty, I'm assuming?
For 1 year. I very seldom have ever seen a need to negotiate it further than that, because at the end of the day, if the appliances are old, Renee knows, thank you for the thumbs up, Renee. Renee knows that either she needs to keep paying for that home warranty going forward, but at the very least for 1 year of home ownership, she's either got to get ready to replace the appliances, or she knows she's got to just be careful with them or prepare to replace them. Here's the crazier part about this, guys. It's all, you know, I love the psychology behind purchases. Do you know that the exponential percentage of homeowners who go into a home and end up replacing appliances within the first 5 years? I'll put it this way, it's really high. It's well over 50%. You buy a home, and within 5 years of home ownership of someone else's products being in that home, you've replaced them. So when we make such a big deal out of replacing them anyways, they end up replacing them. That's the part that drives me crazy, is that we make such a big deal out of appliances in perfect condition or new or old and replacing that. At the end of the day, the buyer's ready to replace them anyways. They end up doing it. So let's just give them peace of mind for the time that they're going to own them until they replace them. Okay, that was a mouthful. All right, guys, it's 1 o'clock. Let me do this. We're at a point where the rest of this contract moves pretty fast. Do you guys need a 5-minute? Go stretch, grab coffee, potty break, whatever you want to call it. Are we good with that?
Do you
Someone
need
give me a thumbs up, otherwise we're going to keep going. I don't. For those of you who know me, I talk all day long. It doesn't matter, but I want to afford you guys that opportunity. If you need it, let me know. If the answer is no, then we're going to keep going. Davies, I can't say everybody. Just let me know. Is that a good? Is that a no?
5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
5 minutes, emergency stop.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I'll see you guys at 7 after.
Okay.
Perfect. In the meantime, I'll stay on. Anybody have any questions, concerns, things like that? You want to chat? Davies, if you want to pause the recording, we can pause going, and we're back. All right. So let's keep moving. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit here, and we're gonna get to this next section. So section 183 and 188. This is a section that I constantly get a lot of, we wrote it wrong or we understood it wrong. So I'm going to clear the air today. On line 183, it says, and it reads, seller shall pay installments due prior to closing and buyer shall pay installments due after closing. The second one says, B, seller shall pay the assessments in full prior to or at the time of closing. If neither box is checked, then options will be deemed. When we read that, and it's as soon as it says the word assessments, what do most agents immediately think that this belongs to?
HOA.
You got it. You know what this doesn't belong to? This has nothing to do with the HOA. So I'm going to free you from that. So when you read this, what I want to make sure that you guys understand, I'm going to stop my screen share because I want to do this. It's the easiest way to understand this. I promise no one in this class today will have an issue with this going in the future. I'm going to do a quick little whiteboard and let's try this out. Is there a way to clear this? Clear, erase. Oh, clear. And all drawings. All right, that's a clean screen, right, guys?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, here we go. Imagine, if you would, for a moment, a street, right? You guys all understand that's my make-believe street. On one side of the street, we have, pretend for a moment that each one of these blocks represents a house. Fair enough?
Yes.
House A, house B, house C, house D. Perfect. We understand that each one of these houses is located on opposing sides of the street. The city comes in over the course of time and says, hey, you know what? There is a sewer line that needs to be replaced right here. And we're going to destroy this portion of the street to replace that sewer line. That would be considered something municipal, right? That sewer, it's affecting the neighbor. It would be a fair statement to say that it affects the person on that street. Without being specific, and it doesn't matter if we're right or wrong on this, this is just conceptual. who does this repair affect?
Both, because it goes 50-50.
Both who?
Yeah.
Correct, both. And
Correct.
by what Elvis is saying is that if I was assuming that who does this affect, who does this repair affect, depending on the municipality, and again, it's not specific whether we're right or wrong, and this isn't important. If this is property A and this is property B, theoretically, this repair on this street affects these two properties. All I want to make sure that you guys understand is that what's on those lines over there is reflective of what we're talking about here. If the city said we've got to repair this sewer and the cost to repair this sewer is $2,000 to whoever it affects, sorry, it's because you guys are in the way. That $2,000 is going to be a tax lien that's going to be associated to the property. That's the assessment I'm referring to. So let me stop share for a moment, and so that this hopefully will make perfect sense and you guys will never have a question about this in the future. Here we go. Let's go back to our contract. So we understand that the city said there's a $2,000 repair assessment for the sewer. It affects the subject property, which is the contract that we wrote on. What we're saying is whatever is left owed to the city in terms of that assessment is either going to be the seller's full responsibility that is owed prior to closing or at the closing table, or the seller has paid whatever they've paid up till the day of closing, and whatever balance remains now becomes the buyer's responsibility. I'm going to pause there, make sure that you guys got that. Any questions, concerns, feedback? What'd you get? Did I lose anybody?
You want the seller to pay it off.
So remember when we were talking earlier, we want to be able, like Sergio said, we want to be able to defend this from both positions, right? If you're the buyer's agent, for everything that's holy, yeah, you want to check off the first one. I want to make sure that everybody understood why they're checking that off. It's got nothing to do with HOAs, and it's only municipality liens. Maria Antoinette, let me ask you this question. What if the lien is $20,000 and it's assessed at a $1,000 a year imposition to the seller or to the owner of the property, and the seller says, I'm not paying the remaining balance? That's whoever's going to live there is going to benefit from that anyway. So they come back, they scratch this out, they select this one, and they initial the change.
Then you will have a point of negotiation, because if it is in an extended
Perfect. I love it.
Time,
exactly.
Then you negotiate. It's fair.
I love it. I love it. You couldn't have said that any better. That is exactly what you have. Correct. That becomes a counter offer. What I want to make sure that you guys are, because she brings up an incredibly, you guys, Maria Antoinette brought up a perfect point. As a buyer's agent, you want to select seller shall pay the installments due prior to closing. If you see it come back, I want to make sure that you guys aren't killing a deal over something. And let's be honest, guys, in most cases, these municipal liens, if there's any, in fact, sorry, not liens, these municipal assessments, in fact, are pennies on the dollar, and they're literally a couple $100s in tax assessments in the year. I don't want to see you guys killing deals over this. So just be cautious, make sure that you know why you're checking it off. And the reality is in most cases, it doesn't even apply. But as a buyer's agent, yes, check off the first one, the seller. If it comes back and you see that it says seller shall pay the assessments up to that point, make sure that you're able to explain what is the amount that the new buyer will continue to pay over the next however many years, if any, and then let them make that decision for themselves. Don't just assume. Great point, Maria Antoinette. Love it.
Thank you.
All right. Let's keep going, guys. I told you this next couple of sections moves a little bit easier. Do you guys understand what a flood elevation certificate is? It's super simple, especially here in South Florida with all these properties, this suburban area that we live in with all of these lakes and whatnot. I can tell you that a lot of the properties that we service are in what's considered flood zones, right? Special flood hazard areas. All I want to make sure that you guys understand is that there's 20 days after the effective date, there needs to be something that shows where the property is elevated in, meaning that there's a flood certificate. It's not a big deal. I just want to make sure that you guys, go ahead. Correct, that a survey is ordered, that one in fact is ordered. The seller may have one that they can still use. I don't want you guys to interpret it. I just need you guys to know that a flood elevation certificate is a big deal, that you're gonna need it. You've got information on the contract that talks about lead-based paint, because it says if the property was built prior to 1978, someone give me the answer. You need to attach what to this?
Lead. Lead-based paint disclosure.
Lead paint disclosure. You got it. And you see that it's in there. If the property was built prior to 1978, your contract specifically reads a lead-based paint disclosure is mandatory. No questions asked. Please don't forget it. It's that important. If the property is located in association, which again, probably what 80% of the properties here out west are, you got to include what?
The documents.
Love
the
it.
association application.
You need the association application if in fact there is one. There's a beautiful phrase in here that says the buyer should not execute this. I'm sorry, the buyer should not rely on the seller's current property taxes. I'm going to pause here for a second and I'm going to wear two hats, but I'm going to be cautious how I teach this. When you guys write contracts and you put this all together, the lender is going to assume the tax liability for the property of the current year. So Marie Antoinette, if you have a seller who's owned the property for the last 20 years, it's probably fair to assume that they have homestead on the property. And because they brought it 20 something years ago, their tax liability is probably a lot lower than the surrounding area's newer home sales. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
So the challenge we have is that we are all excited. We show a buyer this $450,000 home and it shows $3,000 in taxes when in fact it probably should be more in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000. And again, I know that I always teach this way. I want to stay in our lane, but I want to be careful. I potentially run the risk of putting someone in a home of $450,000 whose tax liability next year, when their tax assessors, with the tax assessor will come out and say, this house is now 450, the new taxes on this property are 8,000, and after you homestead, it's probably going to be about 7,000. Does that difference in tax liability make this buyer now no longer able to afford the home? And if the answer is yes, guys, tread lightly. Don't force people into homes they can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
This one's tough. I know I wear two hats and I always tell you guys, stay in your lane, tread lightly, but this is one I feel very adamant about. It's important that you understand the tax liability to a buyer. Understand that if the property has a very low tax rating, it's probably because they've owned it for a really long time. The liability is low and they're homesteaded. That new owner is going to assume a much higher tax bill if we're not carefully explaining that to them and at least have given them the opportunity to have that conversation with their lender. Please make sure that you do so.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Love it. All right, let's keep going. FERPTA. I'm not going to spend an entire hour on FERPTA, although we have FERPTA classes coming up in the next couple, I think in the next month or two. Someone give me the short and sweet of FERPTA. Anybody willing to just give me the Cliff Notes version? Why is it here? Why is it so important to have written it into our contract? What do I have to know?
It all has to do.
Absolutely. What is it? Go for it, someone.
It all has to do with taxes. So once they sell and they move internationally, they just want to make sure that they pay their 18%. If we don't do that, then
when you say they, Elvis, who's they?
The seller.
That they pay their taxes. Perfect. Correct. You got it. So guys, what you guys want to, what I want to make sure that you guys heard is real simple. That at least I'm asking a simple question. Hey, Elvis, listing agent, right? Hey, Elvis is Adrian from Keller Williams Realty over here in Weston. Congratulations, we're under contract. Before I send this contract over, I just want to know, is the seller a foreign investor? Does FERPTA apply to them?
No, it does
Perfect.
not.
Perfect. And if the answer was yes, here's all I need you guys to know. I need you guys to know that the moment you write this contract, that you tell the title company, hey, by the way, it was brought to my attention that the seller is in fact a foreign investor. That's freedom. That's the beauty of FERPTA. It's not for you to deal with in terms of, it's not for you to calculate, to figure out, but it's important that you ask one simple question. That's why it's on our contract. Because here's the bottom line, guys. I've owned the property for 15 years as a foreign investor. I don't have residency or anything like that. When I sell this property, I don't think anybody will argue with me that if I've owned it for 15 years, the property has appraised in value. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Don't you have
because I'm a foreign investor.
Don't you also have to disclose it in additional terms, indicating that the owner?
Correct, and you can You can, in fact, Marie Antoinette, but at the end of the day, the reason that this was written into the language of the contract is because it wasn't happening. And the reason it's in here is because I, as an agent, need to know that I just have to ask a very simple question. I can never assume that the seller is being forthright and as blatantly obvious. And the truth is that some people just fail to do their jobs, and that's what it is. So for me, it's just important that we teach it. You guys now know about it, and now you can't unknow it. I told you got to ask. So just ask the listing agent: is the seller subject to FERPTA withholding? And if the answer is yes, great. When we write this contract, and once we go under contract, I'm going to tell the title company, hey, it was brought to my attention that the seller is subject to FERPTA withholding. What I just want to wrap up, guys, real fast, is that if I've owned the property for 15 years as a foreign investor, guess who wants the tax benefit for the increase of the sale of the value of the house? Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam wants to get paid. That's how Uncle Sam guarantees that they get their money. That's what the FERPTA withholding. And here's the sad, unfortunate truth. If I didn't ask, right? If I just assumed that everybody knew how to do their job and I didn't ask and the property closed, when Uncle Sam comes looking for his 15%, guess who's subject to that tax implication?
Your listing agent?
No.
The listing agent.
The buyer.
No,
the new owner of the house, the buyer. Guess who the buyer's agent is going to come looking for as soon as Uncle Sam knocks on their door for 15%?
The buyer.
The buyer's agent. Yeah. So if you guys heard what you need to hear, it's real simple. It's written into the contract because you got to ask. As soon as you ask and you have an answer, if the answer is no, congratulations, move on with life. If the answer is yes, tell the title company, hey, by the way, sellers subject to FERPTA withholding, and let them do their job. That's it. Simple as that. I want to free you guys. All right, cool. Let's keep moving. I'm going to move through this next section quickly, but I want to be succinct. So the seller's disclosure, it's written into our contract because it is not a document that I can mandate from the state of Florida. It is an important document that I require as part of our office compliance documents because it is important. It is critically important. So seller disclosure, it says sellers knows of no facts materially affecting the value of the property. So Nancy, when I as a listing agent ask you, the seller, to write me up some seller's disclosures, and I say, Nancy, I'm going to free you, and I want to free you from any and all liability. The reason for that is I'm going to hand you a document that says it's seller's disclosures, and Nancy, I want you to absolutely be forthcoming and free to express any repairs you've done on the property, anything that you know has been done that can materially affect the value of this property. And I know that some customers of mine will argue, well, if I disclose it, it might affect the value. It might make the desirability of the property change for someone else. Nancy, I want to free you from all that nonsense. Here's the cool news. My job is to defend your value. We're going to come up with a number. We've already come up with a number. I just need you to tell me what you did. If you changed the faucet as a DIY project, let me know. If there was a leak in the bathroom that you fixed, great, let me know. If you had to replace 5 tiles over the last 15 years, great, just let me know. If you had Pepe from Hialeah do the job, I don't care. Say that it was DIY. I just need you to disclose it. And Nancy, here's the freedom that I want to offer you. If you don't tell me in the seller's disclosures that those little items were fixed or repaired to whatever degree by a professional or not, and you don't disclose them, you know who will tell the new owner that it was done?
The building department.
The neighbors.
Maybe them or your nosy neighbor. That's who will rat you out. And here's what will happen. Here's what I want to free you from. I don't want your nosy neighbor to come up and go introduce themselves to the new neighbors and say, hey, by the way, did they tell you about the roof leak they had last year? No, I did not know they had a roof leak. And then 2 days later, it rains like it did yesterday, cats and chickens, and all of a sudden you had a roof leak, but you didn't disclose it. Guess what? They could theoretically come back and say, because you didn't disclose that, I wouldn't have bought the property had I known that. And as a result of that, you're now liable for any repairs or damages to the roof. I want to free you from that. So Nancy, do me a favor, please disclose everything that you did to this property, fixed, repaired, DIY'd, or Pepe from Hialeah as a general contractor. I don't care. Disclose it. Fair enough?
Yep.
Absolutely. Love it. Okay. I hope some of you got I hope some of you took the ammunition you need from that. That's why I said our goal is to always give you as much perspective and ammunition as you can for all of this stuff. The reason it's in our contract, guys, it's real simple. Please ask for it. That's all I needed to get to, is at the end of the day, all that language was for the very simple question. If Nancy was the listing agent, once we're under contract, or hopefully before we're under contract, I would have said, Nancy, do me a favor, shoot me over the seller's disclosures. Some agents, and be prepared for the answer, are going to say, well, I don't have them yet. Great. Get them to me ASAP. Because before we do inspections, I absolutely need to have them. As a matter of fact, I would, as a buyer's agent, I want to have them before we even go under contract. All right, let's talk property inspections. Hey, Maria Antoinette, talk to me.
No, Joan. Hi. Is the seller's disclosure, is that a specific form?
It is. It's actually called seller's disclosure, property disclosure.
Okay.
It is a document inside of all of your forms, whether you use Form Simplicity, Compus. I keep saying it, Davies, CompuServe. I don't know why I'm saying that term. If Barry's here, he's going to be making fun of me. DocuSign. All right. But yes, it's a document you can pull up right away. Property inspections. Talk to me a little bit real fast, guys, so we can move through these last couple of components. Buyers shall have blank days to inspect the property. What do you think is a good number to negotiate a yes on your contracts? If left blank, it's 15 days.
10 days.
5 to 7 days.
10 days, okay.
14 days.
5 to 7 days. All right, here we go. Here's what I don't want you to put. Please don't put 14 days. If I get an offer, I'm just going to be very transparent. If I get an offer as a listing agent and I see 14 days, and chances are in today's landscape, there's about 6 other offers on the table, I can guarantee you, I'm probably not going to say yes to the longer time. Here's the perspective. And so don't hear it from the yes or a no perspective. Understand it, because you've got to be able to sell this, right? So here's your ammunition. Marie Antoinette, imagine for a moment that you're the owner of a house. I came to your house. You agreed that I was the person to do the job, and you hired me to list the property. That took time. That's fair to say. Between the time that we started talking and you said yes to my contract, there's a couple of days there, right?
Yes.
Perfect. From the time that we finally said, okay, well, let's market the property. Let's get the professional photographer out here to stage and to get all these photos, and then actually get you to see the photos and for you to select which ones you think would best appeal to you in the marketing of your property. That took time. Fair statement?
Yes.
Perfect. By the time that the photographer put the property photos up and I got them into the MLS and started marketing the hell out of your property, it would be fair statement to say that that took some time.
That's more time.
Excellent. Now we start to show the property, assuming that we only showed the property for 3 days. Between the 3 days that we ran the open house and all the other offers came in, and now you sat at your dining room table on Sunday night with me and we selected an offer, that took time. Fair enough?
Yes.
And now someone comes to you and says, hey, give me an additional 15 days to tell you whether I want or don't want this property. How likely are you to say yes to that offer?
I would say no.
Perfect. So, and again, don't take it from whether Adrian said no or Adrian said no or yes. That's not what I want you to hear. I want to be able to give you the pictures that you need to paint for your buyer so that you can get them to move here. Here's my answer. It's real simple. I like the 5 to 7 day windows. 10 is kind of, it's okay, but here's the reality. Today's inspectors have the ability to not only get out there pretty quickly because they're hungry for business just as badly as you are. They have all the digital technology to get the reports back to you pretty quickly. Here's my concern. Here's the caveat. What I don't want you to do is to write 7 days inspection days and then wait to get the inspection report on the 7th day to say yes or no. That was long-winded. Let me make sure that I'm clear. One, I think it's fair to say, my internet, I'm going to give you a little list of 3 or 4 inspectors that I would recommend that have done good business for our customers in the past. If you have an inspector of your choosing that you'd like to put to work, then by all means, give them a call and have them on standby. My point to this is simple. Whoever you do choose, I just need to know who they are so that when we go under contract, the next phone call we're making is to schedule the inspection to come out there. Once that's done, we have a short amount of time to actually look at that inspection report, review it, and make sure that whatever items let me be clear, whatever big important items we need to address, that we will address. So I want to give you enough time to do that, but I also want to make sure that you're ready to hire that inspector. So before we even go under contract, I need you to have selected your future inspection company. Did you guys get what you needed?
Yes.
Yes.
Please don't wait till the day that you go under contract to then give a 5 to 7 day inspection window and then you're shopping for the inspector. Please don't do that. have the inspector ready, have them in your pocket, whoever that happens to be. I'm going to encourage you to make sure that you heard what you needed to hear there is you're not recommending one person, that you give an option of at least 2 to 3 people. I would prefer 3, and use language that says, Mary Antoinette, whoever you choose to do business with, great. Just like anything else that you shop for, find the person that you feel will do the best job for you. I'm going to cut some of you off at the pass. Some of you will ask me because you do all the time, well, what if they just say recommend the best person? I'm going to say this. Your perception of who's the best is not always the same as mine. You're hiring them. You're paying for them. Choose your company. Let me know who it is. The clock is ticking. Fair enough?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. It's probably my second favorite section of the contract. Fortunately, the rest of this goes pretty quickly because the rest of this is, a lot of this is just what I like to call verbiage. You've got to know what's in here. Dispute resolution, for the love of God, you guys, please read dispute resolution, how it works, what happens to the money that's collected, that's in dispute. That's for you guys to do. We don't have the time today to sit here and read through every one of these paragraphs for you. You've got to read your contract, know what's in there. Here's a question, because it's showing up a lot more in today's market. If a scenario shows up where the seller needs to stay in the property for an additional couple of days, a couple of things needs to happen. That's called one that's called a post-occupancy agreement. Does anybody know what else needs to accompany that post-occupancy agreement?
A separate contract? Like a lease? So
there you go. You got it, Janine. Yes, a lease needs to accompany that. Here's my only concern with post-occupancy agreements and why. One, if I can avoid encouraging anyone to use it, please, for the love of all that is holy, avoid it. And here's the perspective. Janine, you're online, so let me just stay with me here for a second. Imagine for a moment that you're the owner of the property. You've lived there for the last 9-10 years. You've put love, sweat, tears, and equity into the property. You now go from the day that you close, you go from being an owner of that property to being a tenant of that property. I don't think anyone will argue with me that your furniture was probably still on the property the day of the walkthrough. Fair enough?
Yep.
Right. So now when you do go to move out, let's say that you needed a 15-day post-occupancy agreement. Great. Now you move out and all your furniture leaves. Here's what I find all too often that happens to be the problem. You now move your furniture out and the house looks different to the new buyer than it did when your furniture was there. If there's a hole in the wall because your TV wall mount was there, if your couch that's been in the same position for the last 10 years where you vacuumed around it now has a discoloration underneath it because it's brighter and no one walked on it, it's going to look different. My challenge with everyone is real simple. If you can avoid post-occupancies, please avoid them. If you have to have them, you got to know 2 things. You need an addendum that has a post-occupancy addendum, and you need a lease written into that. Here's the last piece. If you need to get a post-occupancy lease agreement written in, I'm going to encourage you to hire the services of a professional attorney to write that lease agreement up, because it needs to be specific in what liability is whose and how the transfer of ownership comes out. Because it's not unlike a regular lease. Are you putting a security deposit? When is it coming back? How many days do they have to get it back to you? What condition does the property have to be turned in? All stuff that, again, we think, oh my God, that's so easy. What difference does it make? They're going to lease the property for 15 days. There's an amount of rent that they're going to collect. Guys, again, the liability becomes crazy. Wendy, I'm going to give you a 3-second window of opportunity here. Wendy, for those of you who don't know, is an attorney. And I just want to be clear on this. I hope you heard what you needed to hear in terms of if you're going to write a post-occupancy, please get an attorney to write that post-occupancy agreement. It is that important. Wendy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, yes, you need an attorney. I am an attorney. I've done them before. It's super important for the reasons you touched on, specifically about liability, because once you own the property, you own the property if something happens, even though they're living in it. And it's also super important to make sure, because they're still living like any other tenant, that you get the property turned over possession, in the condition you expect it to be. There's lots of pitfalls and lots of things that an attorney can write into it to protect your client.
Perfect. All right, love it. Let's keep moving. Let's see here. Make sure that I don't leave too many crazinesses out. We're almost there, guys. Okay. Second to last page of your contract shows addenda and additional terms. And a lot of you will look at this, and I've actually seen these contracts written up, and you say, I'll just add the addendums or not, and you don't check these off. Anyone want to give me their 2 cents as to why this section of the contract is here? What's the important? Why is it here? Why do we check off these little boxes as they apply? Or why is
Make it part of the agreement.
There you go, Barry. You couldn't have said it any more succinct. If what this page does is it introduces and attaches a document. It's exactly what it does. If we know that our property is located in a homeowners association, I know that I have to attach a homeowners association addendum. This check mark introduces that document and now makes it part of that contract. If we know that the buyer is financing FHA or VA, by which there's an FHA amendment clause, addendum, then this introduces that. If we know that the property was purchased prior to 1978, this check mark introduces that document to be included as part of our contract. If we know that the property that they're purchasing is located in a housing for older persons, a HOPA community, or better, some would know it as a 55 and older, then we introduce that addendum as well. Let me think if there's anything else that becomes a big deal. Oh, okay, I left one out. And again, we're not talking the specifics of the language. I just want to make sure that you guys understand it. In today's landscape, so here's some ammunition for you. And Kim, if you're out there, hang out with me for a moment. We look at the appraisal contingency, right? Because for those of you who don't know what it is, I'll explain it real fast. Basically, it's a document that says that this property has to appraise for the sale, for the contracted price or higher. Meaning, if we said 450, if it doesn't appraise for 450, then we have an obligation to either have a meeting of the minds, or the buyer can choose to not purchase the property and has an out under the terms of this contract to no longer purchase this property if it doesn't meet the appraisal standards. Great, because the lender is not going to give money on a home that's not worth it. In today's landscape, though, because we see so many so many buyers putting in offers above asking price, which now makes the property no longer susceptible to the appraisal contingency. Anybody give me some thoughts, or Kim, give me some thoughts around the appraisal contingency in today's landscape?
All of us just had that conversation yesterday, and one of the people on the conversation were saying that they were getting beat out in this landscape because it's a negative, obviously. And the contract, I went back to the contract and I said, we're covered. And we read through the contract, line 116 talks about appraisal. If it doesn't appraise, it doesn't appraise. And seller and buyer are not obligated, buyer gets the deposit back. So it's kind of, because we were trained, that's what I was saying. I was trained, it's always safe to put it in there. But in a bidding war, correct, it's a negative. So that's kind of where that conversation went. We all came to an agreement that it's not a great thing right now, but that's just my opinion.
Perfect. I love it, and I'll kind of take that for a moment. Let me stop share because I want to see if I can give you guys a little bit of ammunition today. So we talked about in today's landscape, right? Because everything starts to look a little different. Let me clear this screen out. Let's go here. All right. So let's see if I can do this easily. We constantly talk about presenting a better offer, right? So Kim, if you're still there, just kind of work with me on this. Let's see if we can make this make sense. Okay. We're creating an offer for $450,000, right? I'm going to see if I can draw this fast enough. For $450K. Now, I know, and I'm going to use very careful language. I never want to hear stuff like, it won't appraise for that value, or it will appraise. As an agent, I have to have a very clear understanding that first and foremost, an appraisal is nothing more than an opinion of value. And make sure that you hear that word again. It is an opinion of value. It is not, there's no magical science behind it that everything's perfect. The other side of that is that as agents, you also need to understand that even the best appraisers, there's usually about a 0.5% difference between one appraisal to the other. That it could be upwards of 0.5%. And if you understand what 450 to to that 0.5%, that's several $1,000s that it can swing in any direction. So if I understand that language, I will never use a word like, oh, guaranteed that a house will appraise, or no way that it won't appraise. Since I'm not an appraiser, I will never use those words. So okay, I got that brokery hat out of the way. So we're making an offer for 450. I know that my buyer has, according to this contract, has 11K that they can put in to this contract for deposit as far as risk. Is that a fair statement so far? Everybody's good with me? All right. We're in a landscape that customers are offering more. They're saying, well, I'll offer this much more above appraisal. So the conversation that you have to have, do you have it at the time that you're writing the contract, or do you have it way before you start showing homes today, Kim, of what if we find ourselves in a bidding war, or if we want to get said yes to, since you've probably lost out on 2 or 3 other offers before, like Leticia, how can you best position this offer so that it gets said yes to? A lot of agents constantly move directly to this number. Let me go as high as I can on this number, completely obliterating any chance of it appraising. And what we fail to understand is, what we really need to understand is, what does the seller net? If I can write this offer so that the seller nets more money, then there's a much better opportunity for my offer to get said yes to. So we'll start with the price, because the price is the easiest one. So Kim, if the asking price was 450 in today's landscape, what do you think would be a fair value to get said yes to?
Well, what I do is I call the agent to try to get an idea of how many offers there are, but that's sometimes difficult, and then kind of go from there, and maybe go 5. It depends on the condition of the home. If the home is move-in ready, then my conversation is go a little higher, because it's better that they did all the modifications or upgrades, and you don't have to do that later. The headache, the time, the aggravation, and more important, the expense. So what are these upgrades important, and how much cash do you have, to go above? If it's not, then that's a whole nother conversation. If the upgrades are not there and they still need to upgrade, then again, having that conversation, how important is this house to you as far as schools and location, blah, blah, blah. So that's where I would say 5,000 or whatever that person has, and try to put our best foot forward based on condition. But basically, what will the buyer, right, like you said, buyer will pay.
So here's a concern. And again, not a concern, but it's ammunition, right? So there's 2 ways to look at that. If we understand, and that's why I wrote it right next to the word cash. If we had the conversation with the buyer and the buyer said, I have $5,000 in additional money that I can use if I need to negotiate it, then some agents will write it, buyer will pay $5,000 above appraisal. That's what that APP stands for. Or some agents, to ensure the offer gets said yes to, will say something like, buyer will pay the difference between appraised value and sales price, not to exceed 5K. Do you guys see the difference in the verbiage, though, what that implies? How that can play out? If the appraisal comes back at 400, and let's use a realistic number. Let's say the appraisal comes back at 420. Well, that's a marginal difference, right? That means that according to the first line, my buyer will pay 425. Fair enough?
Yes.
The second one says the buyer will pay the difference between the appraised value and the sales price not to exceed 5,000. If it came back at 425, what is my buyer paying for this property?
450. 450.
450. Correct. Yes. You guys got it. Which one nets the seller more money?
Okay.
The second option.
The second one. Correct. The challenge is you can't write the second one if the seller, I'm sorry, if the buyer doesn't have the cash to do that.
Ready.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That's why I said I always like to play devil's advocate in these scenarios, and I want to give you as much ammunition to get an offer said yes to. Another option, guys, that very few people use it, and it works. There are seller closing costs, meaning there is a cost to selling a home in you know, as a seller, as a homeowner. Why not change the language of offer the value you need to offer so that you can be a competitive buyer? If it appraises, it does, it doesn't, you can leave that alone. But you can also say that buyer will contribute $5K, if it's allowed, $5K towards seller's closing costs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This little line right here, when used correctly, now made the seller more money. If the property appraises for whatever it's going to appraise for, right? Because that's the landscape we're seeing. Some people will say, well, I'll pay $5,000 appraisal. But great, but what if the appraisal only comes in $20,000 less? Then my seller is not going to be a happy camper. If the property appraises for whatever it appraises for, but the buyer is willing to contribute towards the seller's closing costs, making the sale of this property put more money in the seller's pocket, then this becomes a bigger win for my seller, for the seller, and at a very minimal cost to your buyer. Wow, that's a mouthful. Did I lose anybody, or did you get what you needed from that? That's a couple strategies. I hope that helps.
I just have a question about where you put this information. Where are you putting it in?
Great question. Ready? Let me stop screen share here. I'll show you where that goes.
Okay.
Hey, Adrian, not to disrupt the amazing flow that we have, but let's not forget we have about 11 minutes till the next course.
I got you. We're almost done. Actually, fortunately, we're on the last page, so we're literally almost done. Janine, right?
Yes.
That's where it goes.
Okay. Thank you.
On the additional terms. Absolutely. My pleasure. All right. Let me scroll down here for 2 more seconds. We're literally wrapping this up, and then we want to open up for some questions. I think it goes without saying, please make sure that everybody signs the contract. Here's some caveats. Here's some best practices. And actually, let me play some scenarios. Davies, hang out with me for 3 seconds.
Talk to me.
You called me. You called me. I'm the listing agent. You called me and you asked me, hey, will the seller accept an offer? And I said, send me your highest and best. We're going to look at all offers equally. Great. And you sent me an offer, let's say today at 150. And I call you back and I say, thank you so much, Davies. I received your offer. And I tell you something like, because I hear agents use this language all the time. You know what, Davies? I think the seller's going to really like your offer. I can pretty much expect that they'll have it signed by late this afternoon. You get excited and you tell your seller, you tell your buyer, hey, I think we got the offer accepted.
Oh.
3 minutes after your offer came in, I got another offer from Janine. Janine's offer in terms of terms is more favorable. Seller signs Janine's contract and sends it back. I'm sorry. My seller signs Janine's contract and sends it back, and I send it back to Janine. Who's under contract? Who's got this contract?
Second buyer.
You got
and
it.
We're held
I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to make sure that you guys heard it's an accepted contract when all parties have received a copy of it. This one's tough. Please don't be the agent that promises the buyer we got the contract accepted and now you've given false hope and you don't have a document that's executed, signed by all parties back in your hands. Please don't be that buyer's agent. Please don't be the listing agent that tells the buyer's agent, hey, they'll accept your contract, we'll get it. And then they don't sign it and accept another offer that came in a couple minutes or an hour or 3 later. Issues that I got to face all the time. Please don't be that agent. Until you have a contract accepted, signed by all parties, please don't go shouting to the rooftops that we have an executed contract until you've given it back to everybody. And by the way, if I'm playing devil's advocate, the buyer and this, I'm sorry, the buyer may have thrown you an offer. Your seller may have signed. And 20 minutes later, your seller gets another offer, and you, because you present it to them and you have to, and they say, I want to accept this offer. Since your seller's agent, your listing agent, have not sent that offer back to the other party, your seller can still accept the higher offer. The moment I send it out to the buyers that signed the first contract, then we're under contract. Does that make sense?
So once all parties receive the copy of the signed contract by both sides, that's when it's an actual
contract.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right. Woo! All right. So then the good part here is that obviously everybody signs. Here's my last portion. If you're the listing agent, this is language I'm going to use, so you got to just hear it. We are not party to the contract. And what that means to you guys is, I know that I see it all the time, and some people may argue with me. I'm just going to say it how it is. I'm going to put here Adrian Lindemann. That's it. And here I'm going to put what I'm not going to do, what you didn't see me do, is do this. Here's the reality. As a buyer's agent, because you will get some very creative buyer's agents out there. You will get and Marie Antoinette, I'm only picking on you for a second. Maria might actually put out here something like Maria, and she'll put here, some buyer's agents will do this. And then they'll tell you at the closing table, even though you only agreed to the offer of compensation in the MLS of being 3%, they will literally put up a fight and say, no, you signed a contract saying it was 3.5%.
What about the MLS?
Because we're not party. Correct. And that's what I'm getting to, is that your offer of compensation is based on the MLS. That is it. That's the rules we play by, which means if the offer of the compensation in the MLS says that it's 2%, you can't even write 3% in there anyways. You shouldn't. You're not party to this contract. All you did was prepare the contract. Your offer of compensation is tied to what's written in the MLS, which is why as an office and a brokerage, I require that you hand me a copy of the MLS sheet in your documents. And the reason for that is real simple. If you ever get into a dispute for the amount that's being paid out, the first question I'm going to ask you is, great, do you have a copy of the MLS sheet when you filled out this contract? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to say, great. What's the next question is, what does the offer of compensation say to you? And if it says 2%, guess what you're going to get paid? You're going to get paid 2%. 2%. Now, if it said 3% when you wrote the offer, and then the agent later changed it to 2%, I'm still going to ask you the same question. Did you take a copy of the contract, of the MLS when you wrote the contract? And you might tell me, no, Adrian, I took a copy of it 3 weeks later. And then I'm going to say to you with my head as painful as I can, Maria, I love you, but your offer of compensation in the MLS as it's written is 2%. Unless I can defend 3% with proof, I'm not even going to fight this. It's a fight that is almost unwinnable, because the MLS will never provide me a back history log of proof of when that agent changed it. That's why our obligation, as agents, we simply ask you, get me a copy of the MLS. So hopefully what you guys heard as we wrap up today is is real simple. Put your name on the contract. Put the name of the brokerage you represent on the contract, whatever side you represent. I don't need the percentage, and it doesn't even matter. It could be 1%, it could be 5%. It wouldn't matter what's there, because that's not how you get paid. You get paid based off of the offer of compensation that's written in the MLS, and I'm going to ask you for proof. That's why I ask you for proof. All right. Oh my gosh. It has been an absolutely fun day. We're wrapping up to 2 o'clock. And as Davies was so eloquent in saying, we got to move this. So I'm going to ask you, as we wrap up all of these classes, talk to me in your shortest amount of time. Tell me, what did you get out of this session that you knew, didn't know, that you take away, as I like to call them? What are your takeaways from today that you say, hey, I didn't know that, or I can put that into my business to apply and to put it to work immediately? What do you got?
Adrian,
open mic, go for it.
I have a question more than an aha. When it comes to the condo writer, HOA writer, and lead-based paint, that's really the seller putting information on it. If we as a buyer's agent, submit it, it's kind of in blank, signed. Like, how do you recommend we deal with that? Do we have it
Well,
signed?
you introduce it as part, you send it, yeah, you send it by the buyer, and then and you're right, the condo writer has to be filled out by someone else because you don't have that information. You're not privy to it unless you have a relationship with the association and you just happen to know it. You're right. You send it signed by the buyer.
You have your buyer sign it in blank when you submit the offer?
Correct, because I mean, here's the other side of that, Wendy. I mean, really, it doesn't take much time to go find out. I mean, but if you can't, then still send it. Either way, you're presenting the offer with that.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. All right, give me the ahas, guys.
I had a quickie question.
Your turn.
In negotiation of a contract and a reduction of commission, just be careful with that, because it says right above it that you cannot change the commission on the contract. So what's your take on that?
Because what Barry is trying to tell you guys is that if you see the offer of compensation on the MLS is 2%, please don't sit here and try to throw in the offer at 3% and expect to get it to get accepted. Here's the reality: the only person that is able to renegotiate the offer of compensation that's written in the MLS would be a broker. The offer would have to accompany a higher than requested commission. It would have to be agreed to, and it has to be done at offer presentation, which means you cannot get this accepted, then later try to fight for a higher commission. This one's
I'm asking you actually the contrary. I'm asking you if it was a 3% commission and you took a price reduction and said, okay, I'll take 2% instead.
Fair enough. Then a broker would still need to sign off on it.
Okay.
Yep. Great point. I'll throw a class together on that, because that's something that we're seeing a lot of in this landscape. So great point.
Thank you.
A class.
Adrian, let me ask you a question.
Guys.
If it has to do with the commission, let's say the MLS has 3%, and you were in communication with the broker, and they sent a text message saying you will receive a bonus of such. Is that considered?
Is it written into the MLS?
It's not written.
If it's not in the MLS, I can't uphold it. So
okay.
Two things need to happen. If it's written in a text, then there needs to be sent as formal communication and a letter from the broker. Because again, the only thing I, as your broker, can fight is what's in the MLS. That's your offer of compensation, unless there's a letter broker that states otherwise.
Got it.
Good question. All right, guys, I appreciate the questions. Give me the ahas. What do you leave with today that you didn't have before? Throw them out.
60 seconds, guys. Throw them out.
Different ways that you can negotiate multiple offers.
Perfect. I love it. Some new negotiating strategies. I love it, Eleanor. Thank you.
When it comes to the legal description, we always want to go to the warranty deed or the special warranty deed to get the exact description.
Love it. And throw it in as an exhibit A. Perfect. Give me another one. Great, Elvis.
My aha is including the deed with the contract. That's a biggie.
Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Give me another one.
I haven't worked with the buyer for a long time, so I was just really glad to get a new general overview.
Love it. I love it. That's what we're here for. As much perspective as you can get on these contract classes, take them. And if I've said it 100 times, I won't stop saying it. Read your contract. Yes, those last 4 pages with all that explanations in those paragraphs, please know what that says. It's important that you understand what it says. Love it. Give me another one.
When it comes to the finance, always contact.
We gotta go, guys. I love you guys. So sorry.
Love you. Love you, Davies.
Thank you, Davies.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Be safe.
My pleasure.